into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. Thousands take to the streets across the country in pro-refugee counter-protests.
The London headquarters of Reform UK are targeted.
Well, activists from Stand Up to Racism target Nigel Farage and his party and accuse them of fanning the flames of bigotry and Islamophobia.
The government scraps social housing plans. Angela Rayner has apparently dropped Tory provisions to prevent recently arrived migrants from applying for a council house in England.
900 days of the Ukraine war. President Zelensky confirms for the first time that his military is conducting an offensive inside Russia.
And as the first people are jailed for riot-related social media posts, we're asking if you should face prison for what you wrote online.
It was another 6 medals for Team GB on the penultimate day of Paris 2024. We'll be looking back on the games ahead of tonight's closing ceremony at the Stade de France. Close to home, meanwhile, it was Manchester City who prevailed over rivals United at Wembley as they won the Community Shield on penalties.
We'll see things hotting up as we go through the next couple of days with plenty of sunshine on offer. But as we go through Monday, there is a risk of some thundery downpours for some. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
Just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dix.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I just wonder, if you're watching us at an airport this morning, are you having a pint or a scotch? In my drinking days, I always had a scotch at the airport.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know you're going on holiday then, don't you?
Yeah, but apparently, now this is in, what's it in? It's in Daily Star Sunday this morning. We're killing off that tradition.
We're going healthy.
Record numbers of UK teetotalers have called time. They're drinking bottled water, alcohol-free ale and gut health shots.
I've tried those.
Didn't like them, Anna.
Well, I just, yeah, I mean, they're just a shot of orange juice or something with a bit of ginger in them, aren't they?
Yeah, turmeric and all that.
Yeah, and people say that you only have to do it every morning for a month and you feel the benefit, but I couldn't. I just thought, this is ridiculous.
I was told yesterday.
Orange juice.
I was told yesterday, because I'm feeling, as you know, I'm sorry to bore you with it, but I am feeling really exhausted at the moment.
Yeah, he's tired.
The last couple of weeks, I felt absolutely whacked, and the alarm at 3 o'clock has not been fun.
No.
And I've been told apple cider vinegar or something in water.
That's right.
Is disgusting, but makes you feel better.
Yeah, it's meant to. People swear by it.
Just be careful. If you've got an acid reflux problem like I have, it can aggravate it a little bit.
Yeah, but you don't have very much of it. You only have about a teaspoon.
You can get it in a capsule, though.
Oh, can you? I didn't
You can indeed, yeah, if you go to a
I know people who absolutely swear by apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
But if that's like a wonder drug, why is it not out there?
It is.
Well, it is.
It is. You can buy it in a well-known health shop in the high street. Will sell it in abundance, and you can get it in all kinds of different capsules or
I've got two bottles in my cupboard.
Have you?
I'll bring one in. Yeah, because they sit there looking healthy, and I don't actually drink it.
Yeah.
But it's meant to be good for the dog as well. You're meant to put a teaspoon in the dog's drinking water.
Oh, really?
And it stops them from having, terrible bad breath. My dog. Awful. So,
but the airport's somewhere where the clock just doesn't exist, isn't it?
Absolutely. I know. I
like
really
a casino.
That first drink you have when you're going on holiday and you get to the airport, or maybe you wait until you're actually on the plane, that first drink says, I'm on holiday.
I used to love it.
Brilliant.
Double scotch, straight. Lovely. Do you have a Bacardi there when you get to the airport?
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
No, it's nice. You know you're on holiday then.
So we're going to perk him up this morning, aren't we?
Yeah.
Perk you up. So apple
cider vinegar.
If you take it, let me know what you think. It's my mother who told me this yesterday. I said, you're turning into a witch.
Exactly. See, that's the thing that stops me from doing it, like with the shots and everything, because you think, I'm turning into a dotty old lady.
Yeah.
Already I take so many pills and potions in the morning that I feel like I'm a little old lady. Yeah. Is it little old lady-ish to take a lot of vitamins? I mean, there are people I know who take so many vitamins every day, and the doctors say, actually, you're just...
Weeing it out.
You wee it out, yeah.
Is it vitamins or vitamins?
Oh, Anne likes vitamins. She said vitamins.
Yeah.
I'm a vitamins man, but...
Well, there you go. If you've got any of these wonder cures, let us know. gbnews.com.
And do they make a difference? Do they work? We'd love to know.
Maybe I'm going to have to try it after my criticism last night. Typical with my mother. I've always got to row back and admit she was right.
Absolutely.
Always the way with your mum.
Yeah, it is.
Right, look, it's almost 2 weeks tomorrow since the tragedy up in Stockport and the violence which sadly followed, and hundreds of people involved are now being hauled before the courts. As a top prosecutor has warned, some could face up to 10 years in prison.
Yeah, but the anger still hasn't gone away. An anti-racism protest, that's anti-racism, it was in London yesterday. That turned heated as 2,000 protesters gathered outside Reform headquarters, where GB News reporter Charlie Peters was with his cameramen.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me! I will He's touching me!
Film it, Stevie. Film it. Get the stuff. Get it back. Get it back.
I'm not getting the bag. My job is your safety. No. Yeah. Is that your bag?
Yes.
Listen to them.
Isn't it funny how some people who are spouting this sort of bile and saying horrible things have sort of peace and love on their T-shirt or something?
Yes. Often the way.
Ironic.
I get it with some of the most horrific abuse I get on Twitter. When you look at the people's... I always look at their profile, and often they claim to be peace-loving vegan activists or something. You know.
Yeah.
Save the animals, be kind.
Yeah.
All
It
that
would just
sort
be
of thing.
horrible to you.
It'd be really horrible to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, it all comes as police investigations move online. They're trawling through social media accounts of influencers and rioters, searching for posts which may have incited or encouraged violence or spread disinformation.
So we're joined now by political commentator John Oxley. A very good morning, John. Well, do you think this is going to have an effect when we read the accounts now, and they're big in the press, and the police are giving all the details and everything, that if you say something vile online or incite hatred or whatever, you will be found and shamed and possibly even sent to jail. Do you think that is going to have an effect?
I think absolutely. I think we've seen with these protests, people, whether deliberately or whether they've got carried away with the excitement of the moment and what they were feeling, have been quite. Some have been quite radical in what they've been saying, and some have crossed those boundaries. And I think if we start seeing there are real consequences for this, and it looks like police and prosecutors are going to take it very seriously, I think it's only natural that people are going to be chilled a bit by it, and that's probably going to apply to some of the illegal things people are saying, but also potentially some of the legitimate things that people will just be worried about whether they're crossing the line or not, because if you're not well versed in the law, it's quite hard to know where those lines are.
Well, I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? And there is clearly some sense if you're inciting violence, but we don't know where the legal threshold is. And the idea of spreading disinformation, although, I mean, there is a concern, there's a legitimate concern behind it, but at what point does it become a bit 1984?
I think, and what I'd like to see is hopefully with this idea of disinformation is really you have to start looking at intent and what people meant by it. Because I think it is one thing, for you to go online and say something you genuinely believe is true. And another thing, if you are someone particularly, foreign agents or disruptive people here who are going on with the exact purpose, fully knowing that they are saying something entirely untrue with the intention of riling people up. And that feels to me a little bit different, and hopefully that's where the legal distinction will start to fall.
It's very interesting that police are going to the trouble, I presume specialist police are going to the trouble now, of looking at things that were posted online, maybe retweeted, as it were, but they're going right back to try and find the very first tweet. In other words, the person who kicked it all off. And there are several cases now waiting to be heard at court where they've done just that.
Yes, so that is something, clearly the message coming out at the moment is they sort of want to make an example of people who were starting all of this, who are really at the very first iteration of these untruths. I suspect technologically that's relatively easy to track those people down. And those are the people we're starting to see arrested now. It'll be interesting to see how this proceeds and whether people a bit lower down the list are prosecuted, whether they're charged, whether they receive a caution or a warning as well, and how widely the police and the CPS decide it's in the public interest to go with people who are at the source of this stuff.
It raises, it seems slightly crazy that you then have to say, well, could you be prosecuted or even just warned for retweeting something? If are we going to see cases of people being accused of retweeting stuff that they knew was untrue, but they did it with a certain intent? it gets a bit mind police.
It does, and I think we have to look very carefully at what the police are doing and what the CPS are doing as citizens, and we need to always remember the importance of free speech, and particularly where things are quick moving, people might make innocent mistakes. I suspect with things like retweeting, the police will be really looking at people who are doing it serially, people who are really amplifying this stuff, and again looking at that idea that they knew they were doing it to rile people up. But we really need to be careful that people who were legitimately just interacting with news online don't get caught in this web. It's very dangerous to start arresting people for what they say. There is a distinction when they're doing it to try and cause or incite a disturbance, but you have to be very precise where you do that. Otherwise, people, it becomes a very slippery slope very quickly.
Yes, I suppose that they're making a point here, aren't they? Because they're trying to stop similar behaviour. There's one instance. There's a woman in jail right now waiting for her court appearance. She's the wife of a Tory councillor, and she went on X and posted something that really clearly the police say is inciting violence. She wrote, "Mass deportation now. Set fire to all the hotels, full of the for all I care. If that makes me racist, so be it." She's since totally apologised. And she says now that acting on information that I now know to be false and malicious, and in a moment of extreme outrage and emotion, I posted words that I realise were wrong in every way. But she's been told that she's got to stay in custody. She was refused bail because the magistrates, I think, said that this is just too serious to let you have bail, and you need to stay in custody until we can deal with you properly. They're coming down very, very tough, but it is giving out a message to the rest of the world, I guess, isn't it?
Yes, and fundamentally, I don't think we want people going online and telling other people to burn down people's properties. That is not a good thing to be happening. Whether we need to prosecute everyone who does that, I think more generally, there is kind of this feeling that social media does often bring out the worst in people. People get carried away. But we've seen, particularly with some of these things about burning down hotels and buildings, if you're in one of those properties and there's someone online telling, encouraging other people to burn it down, that's a very distressing position to be in, and it's not something we want doing. And if it warns people off that sort of behaviour, then it's probably not the worst thing in the world.
Well, look, obviously something of that nature is very disturbing. However, on some of the, I don't know, can you call it lighter stuff? But we, as well as sort of prosecuting or looking at that angle of things, we've also got to look at us, haven't we, as individuals, and try and teach people to have some critical thinking, to try and assess stuff that they read online rather than just believe it all.
Yes, and I've said for a while, when we talk about online harms, most of the harms we're actually talking about are things that are offline. It's people, it's the way we engage with stuff we see circulating online. And more broadly, it's about, people who get very angry, people who maybe don't have the best relationships. There's a much broader context to people who get misled by false things, or people who get whipped up by some of the extremes on all sides of online. And I think we need a bigger sort of conversation and sense of how do we deal with that? How do we as individuals take responsibility for both what we are saying and how we react to what we are reading online? I think you're entirely right.
OK, John, good to see you this morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you very much indeed. My only concern with it, and I do think the internet needs to be policed, my only concern is that I don't know how you can possibly do it, and what are the unintended consequences of this? Are there going to be people who are innocently saying things or retweeting things that then at some point can be hauled up and said, oh, you were spreading disinformation?
I think people just need to understand, which they clearly don't, is that when they put something online, they're publishing. And as journalists, we're very... I mean, when you're trained as a journalist, it is absolutely sort of the root of everything you're trained in is the fact that you're publishing material, and that carries with it responsibility and consequences. And
that's why I get really annoyed. A few years ago, I was asked about, isn't it wonderful that we have all this citizen journalism? And they were gobsmacked when I said, no, I think it's dreadful. Because these aren't journalists. They don't, they can say anything without consequence, and people just believe it. You've got to be careful where you get your news from.
Yeah.
Get it from us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they're going to be, but apparently there are plans to sort of teach this critical thinking in schools now.
Yeah, they absolutely.
And I think that's a brilliant idea, because you've got generations now of youngsters growing up who are totally used to being able to publish what the heck they want to and say anything. And I think it is about time we taught them about the responsibility of publishing.
Yeah. Right, today, believe it or not, and I struggled to get my head around this in the newsroom this morning, it's 900 days since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. President Zelensky has acknowledged for the first time that Ukraine is conducting a military offensive inside Russia's western Kursk region.
The surprise operation, which began apparently 5 days ago, has taken Russia by surprise and prompted mass evacuations across both sides of the border.
Well, it's a major development in the conflict, proving Russia's war is not going to plan.
Joining us now, the defence editor of the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Good morning, Robert. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Fascinating to now have it confirmed that Ukraine is on the offensive in some places.
Yes, indeed. It's also fascinating is that how little warning almost everybody got of this. The Ukraine military and political command, that's President Zelensky himself, did not inform their closest supporters and allies. Amongst the top echelon must be the US and the UK, that this was going to happen. And that's why it relates actually to the story you've just been running. Speculation online as to what is really going on. We know there is a major action. We can see that by satellite surveillance, and that comes through into the public domain. But what the intent of this is far from clear, because they have taken, in just over 5 days, 500 square kilometres, not quite sure what that makes in square miles, of territory, and they're not stopping at the moment. They're not pulling back, and they seem to be exploiting on different parts of this pocket that they've developed round Kursk, and that is really keeping Moscow guessing.
Where does this leave the West, Robert, in terms of all the munitions and weapons and training that we have supplied? If that is being used in an offensive capacity in Russia, does that put us in the firing line?
Not necessarily. It's put us in the firing line already, as we can see, in terms of propaganda. And dear old Britain gets more than its fair share of blame for being behind all this. But the trouble is that this kind of war, this multidimensional, a touch of the old and the very, very new, is an observer and a respecter of no frontiers. So you punch where you think your enemy is weakest, and you need to get to them. And one of the bits of news that came out yesterday is that the Ukrainians claim to have seized a major switching point for Russian gas going to Europe through a Ukrainian point, and countries in Western Europe are still getting Russian gas. This is a big blow, and we're going to have to see what the consequences are. But one of the things for the West that is absolutely clear is the ingenuity with which the Ukrainians have operated Western weapons and systems. And it's a real lesson for a country like the UK, which is about to reform its defences, how fast and how cleverly a country with a very low hand when it was attacked like Ukraine has been able to adapt, because it's done astonishing things in the past 5 days, which nobody expected them to do.
So what does that make you feel about the possible outcome, or at least how long this whole terrible aggression is going to last? What do you feel? Does it give you a different feeling about the future?
It does, but it's a feeling, and one shouldn't really just dwell on feelings. But there's been a lot of speculation from experts, and they are expert analysts, but I think that it is completely unwarranted. One, for example, said he couldn't foresee talks seriously beginning until next year, 2025, because of all this. I think quite the reverse, because I think that one of the other things that we're looking at, and I was asked to look at in background to see whether we would develop it as a story, is Mr. Cleverly going to China. We are all opening up towards China now, and anybody from UK who goes there is all to the good, because one of the main things that they will be asking the Chinese about, can you really help to persuade the Russians to see sense? They're ruining in the long term their economy, much of their society. Can't we get talks going? My feeling, and one shouldn't just express feelings with that, actually we're nearer to talks than perhaps we thought we were maybe a month ago.
Gosh, that's interesting.
OK, Robert, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Is it a glimmer of hope?
900 days in, could it be?
It's so hard to say. I tell you what I find very... I know I've mentioned this before. I'm working my way through all the Tom Clancy's at the moment.
Yeah.
I've done it before, but I'm doing it again. And I'm currently on Command Authority.
What's that one
which
about?
was, well, it's Mark Greaney and Tom Clancy. It's actually after Tom Clancy had died. 2013 it was published, and it's about this. It's about Russia and Ukraine.
Oh.
And it's weird listening to it again now, after everything that's happened, and it's almost like a documentary. It is frankly terrifying. But what it goes to show is, and it actually sort of backs up what Nigel Farage was saying in the European Parliament, is that this was entirely foreseeable, because they were even writing novels about it before it all happened.
Astonishing, isn't it? Does it end well?
I haven't got to the end yet.
Oh, I see.
And I can't remember from
truly.
last time I read
Right,
it.
OK.
So
you said you listened to it?
Audiobook.
Yeah, in the car?
In the car and when I go to bed.
Love audiobooks.
Yeah, so that's the way. But it is just slightly scary. It's like life imitating art.
Well, you look at the books and the films that have been made about pandemics.
Oh, yeah.
And they were almost exactly what happened, which makes you wonder why we couldn't have planned better ahead of time.
Yeah, doesn't it just? We're going to have to start taking some of these authors a bit more seriously.
Very serious. Well, I think a lot of these, Tom Clancy particularly, a lot of these authors, they know their stuff, don't they? That's what they base it on. Fascinating.
It is, it really is. Right, let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom at 6:24.
Well, the funeral of Southport stabbing victim Alice da Silva Aguiar will be held today at a local church in the area. She was the 9-year-old who was killed alongside 2 others at that Taylor Swift-themed dance class on the 29th of July.
Team GB added 6 more medals to their total at yesterday's penultimate day of the Paris Olympics. 2 silvers, 1 for Caden Cunningham in the taekwondo. The other was historic, as Kate Shortman and Izzy Thorpe won Britain's first ever prize in the artistic swimming at the Games. 3 bronzes came in the athletics. Georgia Bell finished 3rd in the women's 1500 metres, followed by the men's and women's lineup in the 4x400 metre relays.
And diver Noah Williams also claimed bronze in the men's 10-metre platform.
Contractors have been hired to take down the latest Banksy. That's in Cricklewood in northwest London. A worker for the company, who just said he was called Mark, said they were going to pull down the billboard on Monday, but it had been brought forward to today in case someone rips it down and leaves it unsafe.
Yeah, apparently people were trying to rip it. Well, I think several people were trying to pull it down so they could take a Banksy home with them, but they couldn't move it.
I don't know what to make of it all this Banksy stuff. I just don't know. It's not that it's offensive or anything.
No, it's not. It's usually quite clever and witty.
Oh, yeah. But, however, he's putting them up wherever he wants, and people are taking him down, and what's the point of it all? What's the point of it all? I don't know if he's actually doing any good now, because it's just all becomes this sort of weird controversy.
It's still fun, though, isn't it?
Do you think?
Oh, I think so. It's sort of mysterious the way it suddenly pops up overnight. Mind you, these are just spray-painted animals.
Yeah, so they're just, you know, he does the cutout or whatever, and then he just pops it up and sprays it.
Yeah, I think so. But I rather like the fact that you can wake up one morning and suddenly find a Banksy on a wall near you or something.
But why is that suddenly worth a lot of money?
Well, that one won't be, will it? I don't know.
Well, it will be,
It
Banksy.
probably will. Worth a fortune.
I don't know, I just find it all a bit odd. Find it all a bit odd.
During lockdown, one of my nieces was working as a nurse in a hospital in Southampton, and they suddenly had a Banksy appear in the corridor.
In the corridor?
Overnight, yeah. Yeah.
There's no CCTV?
Overnight. Possibly not. I mean, it is thought he must have been allowed in. He must have asked to go in and paint a beautiful thing in the corridor.
But stuff like that, great. And if you want to do something on the side of a hospital or something like that, great. But when it's just appearing on a tatty old billboard like that and people are ripping it off...
I think that's the point. Yeah, I don't know what the point is, but I like it. I find it fascinating.
But it's all this very mysterious, isn't it? Because we don't know who he is. That's the thing.
Well, the Mail on Sunday claim they do know who he is, and they've been using his name for a long time now. But it's never been confirmed. He's never really given an interview or anything like that. But I just think it's whimsical.
Yes.
And it's not offensive.
No.
And it just is one of the lighter sides of life. And my goodness, we need it at the moment, don't we?
I'm going to go and spray something on the side of your house now.
Don't
Tell you
even try it.
Tell you it's whimsical.
Yeah, no, it has to be a Banksy.
Oh, I see.
It's not a Dixon, it's not the same.
Sorry, no. Fair enough. Right, let's see what the weather's going to do for you. Here's Catherine.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. Some mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further towards the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine, and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more clouds starting to build later on in the evening. But elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just a bit more of a breeze now picking up across the south coast. And that will continue as we go into Sunday evening with some strong and gusty winds across western areas. And this is helping to drive some showers that could be thundery through Monday, the early hours of Monday. Then across Northern Ireland, we'll see some heavy, thundery, showery rain, but temperatures staying up at around 17 to 20 degrees, so a humid and uncomfortable night as we go into Monday morning. But we do have a band of thundery, showery rain moving its way north and eastwards, affecting western parts of Scotland, so could give some difficult driving conditions with frequent lightning here and some gusty winds. Elsewhere, many places staying dry, sunny spells as well for most of us. The odd thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but highs up to 30, possibly even 33 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm going to address this because we've had quite a few views coming through. Apparently I said Stockport instead of Southport when we're talking about that awful tragedy, which I may well have done. Slip of the tongue. Apologise for that.
So it is Southport.
Southport.
Yeah.
Which I should know because I've been to Southport loads of times, but it's one of those things.
A lot of people having their say about apple cider vinegar.
Oh, yes.
Kay says, I've taken apple cider vinegar every day for the last 25 years, and I'm a sprightly 75 years old. A teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, which includes...
Includes the mother.
The mother, with a dash of Canadian maple syrup. That sets me up for the day.
The mother? You don't mean gin, do you?
That's what I was wondering. Is that what
You have
mean?
gin in the morning?
In the morning? Well, why not? Gives you a lift.
No wonder you're sprightly, Kay, if that's the case. Anyway, well, I think I might be buying a bottle if I can
Yeah,
find
Sheila
it.
says apple cider vinegar is also supposed to help lower blood sugars too. I take 2 tablespoons a day with a whole lemon squeezed into it and then add a little water.
I'm not doing
The lemon is supposed to help clean your liver. It all tastes disgusting and then I have to swallow gallons of water afterwards to take the taste away. And I also use a straw so it doesn't rot my teeth.
Well, you're selling
thought it all through.
You're selling it, Sheila. You're selling it. Yes, I don't think I'll do the lemon. I'm not a fan of lemon.
Oh, I love lemon.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh no, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. I even like the rind of lemon. Love to eat the rind. Love it.
Anyway, look, it's the final 3 weeks of our £30,000 Great British giveaway, so still plenty of time to get your entry in.
What will you do with all of the cash when you win it? Well, you can't win it if you're not in it, so here's how.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
To bore on about apple cider.
Well, what are you saying
I've
now?
been looking at capsules on
Yes,
an
that's so you
online
don't have
website.
to actually taste it.
Made with the mother.
Oh, which means what?
I don't know, but it's apple cider vinegar with mother capsules. So that's what she means. She's not on the gin first thing in the morning.
Right, but what's the mother?
We apologise for saying you were drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what it is.
Can you get back in touch and tell us what the mother is,
What the
please?
heck is a mother? But you can buy it with mother.
Well, good, I would. Are you? Right, do stay with us because it's the last day of the Olympics today. Well, it is the closing ceremony tonight. Given that, yes, exactly. Given how interesting the opening ceremony was, it'll be fascinating to see what they do today. But Aidan McGee will be here in a couple of moments to tell us all about it.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Aidan's with us, and it's last day of the Olympics today.
It is.
Are there any competitions?
There are some competitions today. In fact, on the opening ceremony, the final medal presentation is going to be part of the ceremony itself. That's the women's marathon. There are some events today. We've got some medal hopes as well. But just to reflect on yesterday, Georgia Bell, 1500-metre bronze, absolutely outstanding. We had a little bit of an insight into her background yesterday when Olivia Utley, our colleague, was here, and she had.
It's her, the one who was the lawyer, and in lockdown she thought she'd take up running.
She hadn't ran for 5 years before 2022, and so. I mean, she hadn't.
Aidan, your mic's not working.
Is it not?
Yeah.
No, it's a relief, frankly. But while we swap it out, let's have a look at the medals table, because we are, as we say, on the last day. Interestingly, China's at the top. Now, the United States was at the top yesterday. China's there with, I can't really say, does that say 39 medals? 39 golds and 38... USA's got 38, but you look at the tally.
Yeah, but you look at the total medals, and USA is way ahead of everybody.
But we've been knocked down to 6th at the moment. 14 golds, 63.
Yeah, but you look again at why do they do it on golds? Just
well, it's a point. You just get more points for gold, I guess.
Total medals,
I think that would be the total number of golds would be a minor disappointment, I would have thought. But there is a hope this morning with Emma Finucane, who's in the cycling sprints.
Yes, we often do well in the cycling.
Yeah, we do indeed. And so, but just to get back to Georgia Bell for a second, a cybersecurity operative. Her boss said to her in the summer, when she put her laptop down to head to the Olympics, we will see you again if you win a medal. And I don't think she's decided just yet, because, I mean, once you've achieved that... I mean, also, we should say she achieved a British record and a personal best, 3 minutes of 52 seconds.
That's just an amazing story.
It is.
Thought she'd take up running again.
But I'll tell you what's slightly depressing from my perspective is because obviously Olivia was saying, I went to school with her. And then I realised after looking at Twitter last night, I worked with her dad.
Andy Bell, yeah.
Andy Bell, political editor of 5 News. So Olivia knows her, I know her dad.
Yeah.
That says it all, doesn't it?
Just a quick run-through of the others as well. Kate Shortman and Izzy Thorpe, they won the artistic swimming.
Artistic swimming?
Yes.
And I haven't seen that yet.
Silver.
Is that what we used to call synchronised swimming?
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, this is a duet. So, I mean, it depends on the numbers, but they do still, as with the synchronised swimming, you get marks for artistic impression. That's the main thing as well, and also synchronisation as well. So yeah, it does sound like it's very similar. And they complained about lack of funding in the build-up, and their mothers actually competed together in Nepal 30 years ago.
Well.
Oh, that's weird.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, Noah Williams.
Lovely. That's lovely.
Noah Williams, a diving bronze in the men's 10-metre platform. The men and women both won golds last night in the 4x400 metre relay. That means we won medals in every single relay event at this Olympics. And in the taekwondo, a silver for Caden Cunningham. And so it's been overall a pretty decent medal haul for Team GB, but 14 golds. I think they would have been a little bit disappointed with that at the very beginning.
Oh.
What happened in the Community Shield?
Well, it was a decent game, actually. United played well, and, of course, they beat City in the FA Cup final in May. And we've not really discussed domestic football until yesterday. It's almost like it made a return yesterday. City equalised late on. having fallen behind late on, and it went to penalties. And although City won, I do think that if United can keep their players fit, they can be reasonably hopeful of a decent season forthcoming. And Erik ten Hag as well, I think, is he a dead man walking? That's the phrase we use in football. If we think that someone's there when the owners don't really want him there. But nonetheless, the team was pretty well organised. They've announced a signing yesterday of Matthias de Ligt from Bayern Munich. That's an incredible signing for them at £36 million. That's quite cheap because, he was managed by Ten Hag at Ajax 5 years ago. They got to the semi-finals of the Champions League. So that might spell the end for Harry Maguire if they can get him out the door. But I'm not sure they will because he's still got a contract. And why would you leave on those sort of wages?
Well, yeah. Well, they'd have to pay him off, I guess.
Well, no, it doesn't. I know it doesn't work like that necessarily. Sometimes, sorry, I'll just explain how Maguire's contract situation.
In 10 seconds.
That's fine. We'll do it next hour. Yeah.
All right, lovely.
And I also want to talk about the Olympic closing ceremony.
Yes.
But we'll do that next hour.
Tom Cruise, apparently.
Tom Cruise. What are you going to do?
Don't look too excited.
What's he got to do with it? Anyway,
well, I'll be revealing all.
Oh, good.
You can't give him an inch.
Sorry.
Takes a mile. Don't go anywhere. If we've got time, Tom Slater and Emma Wolfe will take us through the papers in a couple of minutes.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, to enrich us on the best cheeses and wine to buy, I'm delighted to be joined by the CEO of Inflorescence, Jacinta Madison Wilson. Jacinta, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Also, thank you so much for bringing what is
what a Sunday you're having.
of wonderful... What do we have before us?
So, we've got 3 gorgeous wines to try today. We've got an English sparkling, we've got a beautiful rosé and a dessert wine, and, of course, cheese.
Wonderful.
And paired them all beautifully.
Now, English sparkling wine has had a bit of a renaissance.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it?
To use a French word to describe English sparkling wine. It's having a bit of a moment in the sun.
Absolutely. I just think it's so exciting that this is right on our doorstep, essentially, an hour out of London, and we're around beautiful vineyards.
The chalk sort of sediment is exactly the same as the Champagne region.
Absolutely. Yeah, our soils are really similar. We use the same grape varieties a lot of the time. We make it in exactly the same way as Champagne. Our climate is like Champagne was 40 to 50 years ago. So we're really kind of drinking it blind. You almost wouldn't know that you're not drinking champagne. But it's right here on our doorstep. We can stay local now.
Absolutely marvellous. Well, we've got... what is the best order to start?
OK, well, we're going to start with sparkling, because all things in life should start with sparkling. I got married a month ago, and this was actually the... Thank you so much. This was the wine I chose to have as our first wine that we served the guests. This is from a winery called Bluebell, which is in Sussex, and I've chosen to pair this with a lovely... kind of the English version of Camembert, which is called Tunworth. It's a very classic pairing of champagne and brie. So we're kind of going to do the English version of that now.
Classic.
Absolutely. Are you ready to get stuck in?
I am so...
OK.
Hang on. Is it cheese first or wine first?
I'd have a little sip of the wine first.
Sip of the wine, bite
have a little bite of the cheese and then some more wine. Get it all mixed up in there.
It's like a cheese sandwich.
Exactly. Yes.
OK, here we go. Cheers.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Quarter to 7, let's have a look at the front pages for you. The Mail on Sunday leads with security chiefs, and apparently the Prime Minister kept in the dark by Sue Gray. Remember her? Oh, God, we're in sync.
Absolutely. Gosh, that name just fills you full of I don't know what. Anyway, let's look to the Sunday Times, because that's leading with rioters face 10 years terms, warns the Crown Prosecution Service.
The Observer says riots will set back efforts to rebuild our broken justice system, according to a minister. Oh.
And then we're going to the Telegraph. Schools to wage war on putrid fake news.
Sunday Express has older sister saw the horror attack on BB. Ugh.
And that's just so terrible, you can't even think about it, really. OK, right, joining us to go through what's making the news, though, editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, and journalist Emma Wolfe. And thank you very much for coming in.
Morning.
Tom, Sue Gray.
The name we never wanted to hear ever again.
I didn't think we would, but my goodness.
Weeks and months of that Sue Gray report. Sue Gray, of course, former chief kind of civil service mandarin of many years, then very controversially moved over to be employed by the Labour Party after, again, leading the kind of inquiry against Boris Johnson. She's now chief of staff to Keir Starmer. And this story in the Mail on Sunday is about the kind of power struggle that she seems to be prosecuting in that particular job. So chief kind of civil servants have complained about the fact that when they want to actually give Keir Starmer a security briefing about quite important things, she's blocking them from doing so. She's saying, you can tell me and I'll tell him. Various other top civil servants have complained of a similar problem. And also in the inside story, they kind of talk about this being also part of this power struggle between herself and Morgan McSweeney, who was like kind of Starmer's right-hand man up until this point. So it's a big question about who really runs the country, who really is in control. We've always known that there have been chief advisors who tend to exercise a hell of a lot of power.
Is she turning into a female Malcolm Tucker?
It certainly sounds like it. And from what you hear of the account, she could easily be quite just as swearing forceful. So it's, again, it's not necessarily the newest thing in the world, but it is a reminder of how much power people who haven't been elected, never been elected, can actually wield within a government like this.
It's difficult with these stories, isn't it? Because you never know how much the person in charge, Starmer, is saying, look, I don't want to be bothered with a million and one things, keep them away from me, how much filtering they're doing and how much they're being asked to do and how much they are sort of taking it upon themselves. So I don't think we're getting the full story here, but have we ever had the full story about the Sue Gray story?
There have always been characters like that.
Yeah.
Dominic Cummings, obviously, and Alistair Campbell.
And later on, we find out that they're quite crazy and they're quite bad. And, you know, I mean, it's really difficult to know. It seemed like an extraordinary leap from one side to the from the civil service fully over to the left. But
It's all well and good to filter. You know, I don't object to that. But if it's a security briefing, this is where I've got an issue.
And these chiefs must know when they need to speak to the Prime Minister. They're not asking for a chat, are they? They're asking to sort of have direct access to the man making decisions at this really, really critical time of security.
Absolutely.
So it does seem a bit alarming.
And Sue Gray, as you've alluded to there, Emma, is a very interesting character as well. Been in the civil service for a long time. She also spent this kind of curious period running a pub in the kind of borderlands between Northern Ireland and Ireland, which many...
She ran a pub?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
At a time when, you know, you would think that maybe that's not exactly what she was doing necessarily because it was at a certain time during the Troubles and so on. So there's an interesting character, certainly, one who is now right at the heart of government and exercising quite a lot of influence, it seems.
All right, let's have a look at the Sunday Telegraph, Emma. And, children should be taught at school how to spot extremist content, fake news, all this sort of stuff
all
online.
of this sort of stuff. Yeah, this is the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, is announcing a sort of revamp of the curriculum in which these kind of skills, critical thinking skills, but specifically online kind of thinking skills, are going to be embedded into the curriculum. So even in things like English, ICT, well, obviously ICT, but maths, into the core curriculum. So as soon as the next few days, they're going to be looking again at the curriculum and how they can really bring what's happened with all the kind of misinformation and the rumours and lies and hatred swirling around on the internet, how they can bring that to children's curriculums as young as 5.
What do you think?
What do I think? Well, is my tone of voice obvious? I have campaigned for a long time for children as young as 5 to be protected from all of this online, from all the nastiness and the hatred and the fear and the... I mean, we can all see what's happening on X and on Telegram and all of that at the moment, but we're adults and it's on us. I don't want children, and I don't want their curriculum being polluted with all the stuff. I want my 4-year-old to be learning English in his English lesson and maths in it. Yes, we need to...
But learning critical thinking at an early age is not a bad thing.
No, that's not a bad thing, but this is specifically around sort of online misinformation, all of that, and I just think... There is so much nonsense on social media that we all waste hours and days and years of our lives I mean, I wish it wasn't. I wish it didn't exist. Of course, children need to be equipped for the world that they're growing up in. I accept that I'm in a minority of parents who do not allow their very young children to have screens, phones, any social media, and I'm going to hold out as long as I can. People think that's ludicrous. But the fact that we're now going to upend their curriculum and start embedding that in core skills like English and like maths, it makes me really sad for our kids.
It also raises a question about who, draws up this curriculum, because there's a lot of kind of companies who offer this service, and you often find out that it's got its own kind of political skew to it, because of course there's a lot of fake news flying around on all kinds of different sides and all kinds of different subjects. But when people use it, they often mean the kind of fake news that they dislike, or the kind of fake news that they disagree with, or the kind of thing that might not actually be fake news, but they've decided that it is, for whatever reason.
Tom.
So that can be a real big problem. You then have kids basically being told, if you see this kind of claim, then you know not to trust it, but it might not necessarily
well,
be
unless
the case.
they're just being taught in a roundabout way that you don't just believe what you see,
Yes,
and you have to, look at it in a critical light.
From what I've looked at, though, it's just, whenever you're talking about kind of groups being brought into schools to do this, or organisations who draw up this material, whether it was on, like anti-racism lessons was a big thing in recent years.
Or
that
mermaid.
sounds completely uncontroversial. Who could be against that? You then look at it and it's actually very politically charged, identity politics type stuff. I think a similar thing could easily happen here. It looks kind of who could disagree with this, but there's often a kind of bias or slant.
And it is going to disrupt the curriculum, OK? You can't be doing 1 minute doing Shakespeare and the next minute embedding critical thinking skills into your curriculum, and these are not...
How you do it for a 5-year-old, I've got no...
And how you do it... Well, I know, and I'm not expecting 5-year-olds to be studying Shakespeare, but, I mean, it is a significant disruption. And as Tom alludes to there, curriculums are drawn up and they're worked on by education specialists. This kind of stuff is often groups that have a specific interest. I mean... Yeah, the nursery where I'm at, for example, the headmistress uses pronouns. She says she, her. What that might be, I might not necessarily agree with that, but it's not going to be completely unbiased. It's not going to have a completely neutral agenda.
All right, Tom, let's have a look at the Sunday Times, should we, and why we can't get enough doctors.
Yes, so the number of students applying for healthcare kind of degrees, that could be medicine, that could also be nursing degrees and so on. It's gone down by 12% over the course of the past 2 years. And this story is trying to look at why that might be. There's obviously been the ongoing kind of junior doctor strikes, which, aside from the rights and wrongs of the pay settlement, I think has raised the profile of what it's like to be a young doctor as you're just starting out. The fact that they're not necessarily, enjoying the pay benefits that come later on in their career. The fact that they are working very unsociable hours and so on. I mean, I think most people would have known that, but I think it's brought it to the fore. They also talk about a few of these kind of big, very successful books that have been written, particularly after the pandemic, about being a doctor, either during the pandemic or just generally. There was that Adam Kay book, This Is Going to Hurt, which talked about obviously a lot of the horrendous things one would go through as a doctor, and kind of saying that that's contributed to this sense that people aren't willing to do these degrees. I mean, that I find a little bit strange because it's always been a vocation. I don't think anyone's ever gone into emergency medicine thinking it's going to be all sunshine and lollipops.
Are these kids expecting to start a job and earn a fortune from day one?
I think they are, yeah. That seems to be more and more this feeling that,
Yeah.
hey,
Well, it
I went
works.
to university, I got a degree, why isn't there this really fat cat job waiting for me? And they're very
I don't think
disillusioned
I don't think medical students think that, because you're committing to... I mean, the rest of us did 3-year degrees. They did what they're doing 7 years of training. It's hard, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you hear that GPs often only working 3 or 4 days a week are on a salary of 150 grand, but on the other hand, we know how hard many of these health workers work.
Well, yeah, they do. Right, thank you both. We'll see you later on.
Let's get the weather now.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. Some mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further towards the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more clouds starting to build later on in the evening, but elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just a bit more of a breeze now picking up across the south coast. And that will continue as we go into Sunday evening with some strong and gusty winds across western areas, and this is helping to drive some showers that could be thundery through Monday, the early hours of Monday. Then across Northern Ireland, we'll see some heavy, thundery, showery rain, but temperatures staying up at around 17 to 20 degrees, so a humid and uncomfortable night as we go into Monday morning. But we do have a band of thundery, showery rain moving its way north and eastwards, affecting western parts of Scotland, so could give some difficult driving conditions with frequent lightning here and some gusty winds. Elsewhere, many places staying dry, sunny spells as well for most of us. The odd thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but highs up to 30, possibly even 33 degrees. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You really could become the next giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt just a lot nicer. We went out for dinner, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Thousands take to the streets across the country in pro-refugee counter-protests.
The London headquarters of Reform UK are targeted.
Activists from the group Stand Up to Racism accuse Nigel Farage and his party of fanning the flames of bigotry and Islamophobia.
The government scraps social housing plans. Angela Rayner has dropped Tory provisions to prevent recently arrived migrants from applying for a council house.
900 days of the Ukraine war. President Zelensky confirms for the first time that his military is conducting an offensive inside Russia.
And as the first people are jailed for riot-related social media posts, we're asking if you should face prison for what you say online.
Morning, we'll be looking back on our memories of Paris 2024 ahead of tonight's closing ceremony at the Stade de France. Close to home, we saw the return of domestic football as Manchester City beat rivals United at Wembley, winning the Community Shield on penalties. More later.
We'll see things hotting up as we go through the next couple of days with plenty of sunshine on offer. But as we go through Monday, there is a risk of some thundery downpours for some. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
Just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
It just occurred to me, Mr. McGee.
Oh, no.
No, it did. At the closing ceremony, that's at the Stade de France.
Yeah.
Now, the opening ceremony wasn't at the Stade de France because they said, where is it, Saint-Denis or somewhere like
that? Yeah,
they said it's not a good...
I think it was me who said that, actually.
Oh, but, you know, not a good place to hold it. It's all slightly problematic there and all the rest of it.
I don't think you can...
Is this a rethink?
No. It was they always wanted the stadium to be involved some way. Obviously, it's been involved during the games as well, as we expected. But I think if you're going to do the outside stuff, and that's the precedent, which we've seen in recent Olympics, it certainly was the case at London 2012, to combine a stadium or to envelop a stadium into that, it needs to be close by. And don't forget, Stade de France was built in 1997 in readiness for the World Cup. It was going to be part of their bid for Paris 2012, which never happened, obviously. So, look, the Olympic Stadium in London was purpose-built. It was done with the Olympic ceremony in mind. It was the natural end of the flow of the river, and so that's where it ended. So this is if you do an off-the-peg Olympics, you've got to work with what you got.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be much more of a sort of show, isn't it?
Yeah, it has to be.
Concert.
Well, let's hope
Lots
so.
of different performers.
Yes.
And
Tom Cruise as well.
What's he going to do?
I'd rather leave it for my sports round.
Oh, all right. We'll
I'm getting protective over my
both of you gentlemen, have you ever been asked when you go for an X-ray or whatever?
Yes.
Have you ever been asked if you're pregnant?
Yes.
No, I haven't. No.
Haven't you?
No, not if I'm pregnant.
Maybe Stephen looked pregnant.
Oh, thanks very much. No, but it's happened for years at the dentists and at hospital checkups and things. You go for any sort of procedure that would put a fetus at risk.
Yeah.
And it's just on the list.
Yes.
Are you pregnant?
But they ask it you and they tick the box.
Well, they haven't verbally asked it. It's just on
a
the
piece
form.
of paper.
Oh, I see.
It's just on the form.
Yeah.
And what did you reply?
Well, apparently,
oddly
X-ray
enough.
operators in the NHS now have been told that they must ask that question even of a man. I suppose if it's on the form, it's just got to be box ticked.
Well, yeah. I mean, I see how some people will be up in arms about it. I don't really care. It's just one of those things. There's so many questions.
It's a sensitive area anyway, because apparently they have to ask that question of women who might be there for various fertility problems and might get very upset at being asked if they're pregnant or not. But it's surely, if it's a medical process, you've got to actually tick that box, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got to ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, it might seem a bit stupid, especially if you're a man. However, if it's just a tick a box, it's fine. I mean, there are much more important things to get irate about in the world.
I don't think it's not
in the NHS.
It's not it's not worth getting upset about.
I don't think so.
I've been asked many times recently if I was pregnant. So you must be joking. But,
Hey, it'd be a great headline.
At my age, it would be any more than a headline. It'd be a trauma.
It would be fantastic.
Yes, well, it's not going to happen.
It would be Uncle Stephen.
I'm sorry, stop getting that twinkle in the eye. It's not going to happen.
Well, it's because I'm about to become great Uncle Stephen.
You're being a great uncle.
A great uncle.
Wow.
Possibly this week.
Oh,
I think due date is either tomorrow or Wednesday. I can't remember which. So I shall be a great uncle.
That's amazing. Does that make you feel a bit
ancient? It's a bit weird, but then the idea of my brother being a granddad.
I've been a great uncle.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
I've been a great uncle since 2001.
Really?
Yeah, but you've got a much older brother, haven't you?
Much older. I had a much older sister. Yeah, exactly. She had children quite young, so that's how it skews the generations.
Yeah. Whereas me and Richard are only 2 years apart.
Oh, I see.
So
There you go.
he's going to be a granddad.
He's going to be a granddad.
In fact, my parents are going to be great-grandparents. It's all just a bit weird.
Yeah.
But
Well, if there are
exciting.
any amazing great uncles or great grandmas or anyone watching, and it'd be interesting to know how young you go. Get in touch and tell us.
Yeah. Right, it is almost 2 weeks tomorrow, actually, since the tragedy in Southport and the violence which sadly followed. Hundreds of people involved are now being hauled before the courts. A top prosecutor is warning that some could face up to 10 years in prison.
But the anger still hasn't gone away. An anti-racism protest in London yesterday became quite heated as 2,000 protesters gathered outside Reform UK headquarters, where GB News reporter Charlie Peters and his cameraman were targeted.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me! I will... He's touching me!
Film it, Stevie. Film it. Get the stuff. Get the bags. Get the bags.
I'm not taking the bag. My job is your safety. No. Yeah.
Is that your bag?
Yes.
I mean, look, what never seems to get explained with all of this is that if there is a protest, and a peaceful protest, which most of them are, there are always going to be some people on the fringes who get really worked
over upset, yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But it's just you condemn one side of it and not the other, which is an issue. I mean, I'm not saying you should haul that fella off to court or whatever, but, you know, definitely needs a firm put down.
Well, that's what, by the look of it, that's what's
the police
happened.
did, yeah.
In the end, it wasn't taken any further.
Anyway, from what's happening on the streets to what's happening online with all of this, police are apparently trawling through the social media accounts of people searching for posts which may have incited or encouraged violence or spread disinformation.
Well, we're joined now by GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Morning, Olivia. It's interesting that the police have obviously got some experts going right back so that they can even trace, ultimately, who started a media post that actually then becomes out of control.
Well, yes, absolutely. Over recent years, it's become more and more necessary for ordinary people to be very careful what they say online because subsequent governments, one after the other, have said that they want to prosecute online crimes in exactly the same way as crimes in real life are prosecuted. Keir Starmer his response to these riots has been to essentially try and prosecute as many people as possible, get as many people behind bars as possible. And it seems to be working in that he's managed to open the courts for huge stretches. Lots of people asking why that hasn't been done before. And nearly 500 people have been arrested and nearly 150 already convicted of offences. Is that going to be enough? I think that's going to be the question for Keir Starmer over the next few weeks. His honeymoon period after the general election has ended quite dramatically. His popularity ratings are lower than they have been since that election and are actually looking quite low for someone who won an enormous majority just 2 months ago, with over 50% of the population feeling that the Prime Minister hasn't been tough enough on rioters. So throwing people in prison, arresting people, getting the police to trawl through social media to find out who started all of this, it might not quite go far enough. There might have to be, as uncomfortable as Keir Starmer will probably find it, a conversation about what some people are saying, you know, is the root cause of all this, the immigration crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by the fact that people don't think he's being tough enough because, I mean, you know, to give him all due credit, he does seem to have come down very hard and very swiftly on people who've caused trouble, but doing that, as you say, without discussing the underlying issue, which obviously is not just going to go away.
Well, exactly. And I think that's just going to be a really, really big problem for him going forwards because of this sort of very strange electoral coalition he has. Every time a Prime Minister wins an enormous majority like this, we saw it with Tony Blair, we saw it with Margaret Thatcher, they have all sorts of people from very, very different corners of the population, totally different demographics, all voting for Labour. In this case, he's got sort of left-wing activists, many of whom have been out on the counter-protest, people who think that even talking about getting a hold on immigration is racist in itself. They voted for Keir Starmer, but so did sort of true blue Tories who were just fed up with the party at the last election and thought that they would give Labour a chance. And those people are much more likely to think that Keir Starmer hasn't been tough enough on the counter-protesters. So he's got to try and sort of hold this coalition together while giving some kind of coherent line on what he thinks Britain should do about immigration. As you say, Stephen, I mean, it does feel as though he's been as tough as he could be, opening the courts for these huge stretches, getting people convicted already. I mean, we've never seen the courts move this quickly. So it's really interesting that people are saying that he hasn't been tough enough. If people feel like that about these riots, then how are they going to feel when Labour carries on releasing more prisoners early from prison? What happens if those people start to re-offend? Keir Starmer, on the whole, it sounds as though his approach to law and order is going to be more lenient than the Conservative government before him. And this poll that suggests that people don't think he's being tough enough right now when he is being pretty tough probably doesn't bode too well for him.
What do you make of this revelation all over the front page of the Mail on Sunday that actually you can't get to see Keir Starmer, even if you're a security chief and you want to brief him about something very serious? You have to always go through Sue Gray. That name comes up again. Sue Gray appears to be gatekeeping him. She won't let people go in and see him. I wonder what he will think when he sees the front page of the Mail on Sunday today. I wonder if he knows he is being kept behind Sue Gray gates, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be really interesting. The appointment of Sue Gray by Keir Starmer was obviously incredibly controversial. The woman who oversaw, really, the downfall of Boris Johnson. She is said to be pulling all the strings in Downing Street. People have been saying that for quite a long time now in Westminster. And it is known that you have to go to Sue Gray to get to Keir Starmer at all. But, of course, one would assume that the security chiefs who need to talk to the Prime Minister urgently about matters relating to the security of ordinary British people would get to bypass that gatekeeper. Well, according to the Mail on Sunday, that's not true. They don't get any free pass to the Prime Minister. What will the Prime Minister make of this? Does he know, or will he be surprised? Will he be giving Sue Gray a bit of a talking to later this afternoon?
Had to be a fly on that wall.
Oh, absolutely.
Olivia, thank you very much indeed. What strikes me with all of that is, why do they not learn? When you've had, obviously, Dominic Cummings, which was problematic, Alistair Campbell, problematic. With Theresa May, you had her two sort of advisors who seemed to be problematic from many people's perspective. They never seem to learn, do they?
But you need somebody like that, though, presumably, if you're Prime Minister. Otherwise, you'd get bogged down in everybody's problems. They'd all be asking to see you.
Well, yes, but there's got to be...
So you need somebody in charge of the door, don't you?
Well, an efficient secretary would, a proper, hire someone from your local GP's surgery. They know how to handle people.
It must be incredibly frustrating to be as important as, for instance, a security chief who's trying to get through to give Keir Starmer a personal briefing about something and has to ask for permission to see him from Sue Gray, who says no.
You can tell me and I'll pass it on. No.
No. He's the Prime Minister.
No, it doesn't seem right. If it's true.
Well, it's interesting. Olivia said they've been talking about it in Westminster corridors for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, well, we shall...
She's a woman who seems to wield a lot of influence.
I don't like it. I mean, it's nothing to do with the fact it's a Labour Party. It's whoever's in. I don't like the fact that you have these unelected people who seem to be running the show.
I mean, people absolutely resented Dominic Cummings, didn't they? And
seemed to think he was Prime Minister.
That's what they used to say.
But anyway,
as you say, they don't learn; they do it again. They repeat. They repeat the same mistakes, don't they?
Isn't that the definition of insanity?
It is. Repeating the same mistakes and hoping for a different outcome.
Yeah. Right, on to the Ukraine-Russia war, because it's 900 days today since that began. President Zelensky has acknowledged for the first time that Ukraine is conducting a military offensive inside Russia. That's in the Kursk region.
Well, the surprise operation, which apparently began 5 days ago, has taken Russia by surprise and prompted mass evacuations across both sides of the border.
Well, it is a major development in the conflict between both nations, and it does go to prove that Russia's war is certainly not going to plan.
Joining us now, military analyst Sean Bell. Good morning, Sean. Was this a surprise to you, or was it something you suspected was happening anyway? And is it really going to be a surprise to the rest of the world that Ukraine is now acting on the offensive?
Yeah, good morning, Anne. Good morning, Steve. I was very, very surprised. I think most people were very surprised. The problem is that for a lot of analysts, the chance of Ukraine doing an invasion into Russia looks an incredibly risky operation and a waste of valuable resources because they're going to be very, very vulnerable. But my own assessment, and I think for many military folks, is that you want to seize the initiative. And for the last 900 days of the war, overall, Russia is just grinding away on the offense. It's gradually taking ground, losing a lot of people. And initiative is everything in warfare. Momentum is everything. And this audacious act, what we don't know is exactly how big it is, how far they've gone inside Russia. Some reports talk about 35 kilometers, up to 20 main battle tanks, 1,000 Ukrainian military forces. And for 5 days, it seems to have worked. It's certainly put Russia on the back foot. And I think, in summary, probably 3 reasons I suspect that Ukraine's done this. First of all is, as I said, to seize the initiative. Ukraine's got a very long border with Russia. Undoubtedly, it'll put Russia on the back foot. Secondly is to demonstrate that Russia is not in control in this conflict at the moment, that actually there are 2 sides here. And thirdly, just imagine the morale for Ukrainian fighters that are actually starting to take the fight into Russia. Now, I spoke to a Ukrainian the other day who said they wanted to see a Ukrainian flag planted in Moscow. I suspect that's probably a step too far, but it will be interesting over the coming days to see how President Putin reacts. He's clearly rattled by this. His number 1 priority is to protect the Russian people, and he clearly is struggling to do that.
Well, that reaction is going to be very important, Sean, isn't it? Because there is this concern, there's always been a concern, that he's got more in his arsenal and he could hit back very hard.
He could do, yes, but what you have to remember is that this is now Russian territory rather than Ukraine territory. In Ukraine, he just levels communities, literally causes devastation. It's not quite so easy to do that in Russia and start shelling your own buildings and your own communities.
No, forgive me. My point wasn't in this particular region. My point was, well, what is he going to do to Kyiv? What is he going to do to other key areas of Ukraine in response?
Yes, I mean, it's a great question. I think there's 2 parts to it. You've not really mentioned it, but the nuclear question, whether he actually escalates this war to some sort of nuclear conflict. Although there's been saber rattling throughout, I've got lots of grey hairs. I was a veteran of the sort of Cold War era, and we were a lot closer to nuclear war during that period than we ever are now. It looks very unlikely that Russia would take that step. So the next step down is, could he ferociously target Kyiv with cruise missiles and ballistic missiles? Well, the harsh reality, he's been doing that solidly for the last 900 days and certainly intensified that of late. And Ukraine has managed to bolster its air defense systems significantly, particularly with now ATACMS and the Patriot systems from the US. So yes, he could escalate further, but Russia has sort of reducing stocks of these missiles and therefore probably wants to save those for the fight ahead. It's somewhat limited. I suspect Putin, quite the opposite, will be actually focused on how do I get rid of this invasion force, because it's an embarrassment to Russia and he'll want to deal with it swiftly and decisively.
Well, we'll see what happens next. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Difficult to get your head around the fact that the war's been going on for 900 days already.
I know. Best part of 3 years, isn't it, I guess? Right, let's get the latest weather update for you with Catherine.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. Some mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further towards the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine, and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more clouds starting to build later on in the evening. But elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just a bit more of a breeze now picking up across the south coast. And that will continue as we go into Sunday evening with some strong and gusty winds across western areas. And this is helping to drive some showers that could be thundery through Monday, the early hours of Monday. Then across Northern Ireland, we'll see some heavy, thundery, showery rain, but temperatures staying up at around 17 to 20 degrees, so a humid and uncomfortable night as we go into Monday morning. But we do have a band of thundery, showery rain moving its way north and eastwards, affecting western parts of Scotland, so could give some difficult driving conditions with frequent lightning here and some gusty winds. Elsewhere, many places staying dry, sunny spells as well for most of us. The odd thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but highs up to 30, possibly even 33 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, we're now into the final 3 weeks of our £30,000 Great British Giveaway. So there's still plenty of time to get your entry in. Here's how.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come for you, we're going to be hearing about how the government has scrapped social housing plans for migrants. We'll give you all the details in a couple of minutes.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel. Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 7:26. Now, the Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, has dropped Tory plans to prevent recently arrived migrants from applying for a council house in England.
Yes, to do this, the Conservatives were going to limit social housing applications for long-term British residents.
Well, this is part of Angela Rayner's vow to ramp up provision of new social homes in a wider plan to boost house building, apparently.
But we're now joined by property strategist Anna Claire Harper. What do you think of the strategy in this?
Well, good question. A big problem is that housing policy and immigration policy need to be connected. We need a cohesive approach to both, and you can't think about housing policy on its own and not think about immigration policy. Exactly. So we've heard a lot of promises around increasing the supply of housing, which is great. We need that. We have a housing crisis. But you can't increase supply and also simultaneously not limit demand and expect the shortfall to reduce. Both have to be tackled at once.
There's already a very long waiting list.
A very long waiting list.
Who want, for instance, council houses?
1.3 million, according to, in terms of social housing demand, in the backlog.
So where are these people going in the interim?
There's a lot of requirement for temporary accommodation, which is very expensive for local authorities. And there's a lot of quiet homelessness, effectively. So people living who would intend to be living in their own housing unit, in their own household, who are sort of having to shack up with others, for example.
Sofa surfing, as they call it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, look, you can see why then, in terms of looking at a spreadsheet, you say, well, we'll reduce costs from temporary housing by allowing people into social housing. But if there's a huge list and the houses aren't there, then I can't see the logic.
And there are... building houses is a great promise because it sounds great. Everyone loves the idea of building more houses to satisfy demand. Whether it's deliverable or not, I won't comment on that right now, but I query it. But the kind of perhaps easier way would be to bring empty homes back into use. And there's over 1 million empty homes. Plus,
really?
Plus, that was in 2021 in the census, plus all the underused homes, and in particular that's increasing as a result of landlords not wanting to rent out their properties anymore because of various policy changes and tax changes. So we have a huge bank of underused and empty homes, many of which are not at the right standard in terms of quality or they don't have the right green credentials. But it would be a lot quicker and easier to improve those and revamp those rather than to promise to build new houses on land that hasn't yet been agreed and requiring more planning.
But in some respects then, do the renting reforms tie into this a little bit? Because there's obviously they're getting rid of no-fault evictions. They're going to change, those people you can now currently say, no, we don't want to rent to you because you're on claiming benefits or whatever. That's all being changed.
which is discouraging landlords from renting properties out, increasing social housing demand. So if you're not increasing the supply of social housing, there's an even bigger problem.
But this cap on, well, it wasn't a cap, it was a restriction on recently arrived migrants.
Yes.
They were, the Tories put this restriction on them to stop them, for a certain length of time anyway, being able to apply for a council house. I understand why Angela Rayner might want eventually to lift that, but why do it now, before she's built the houses that she's hoping to house people in?
Your guess is as good as mine, I think, on that one. And again, it comes back to the point that housing policy cannot be taken on its own. It's so fundamentally interconnected with so many other areas of policy. If you try to take it on its own, there will inevitably be consequences elsewhere. And I suppose looking at housing policy more holistically is one thing, but also looking at it longer term. For many years now, we've seen very rapid succession of housing ministers, very little stability of policy, and that's a huge problem. We have now, children born now have a life expectancy, I think, of 87 to 90 years. We need to think on those terms. We can't be thinking about what's going to happen in the next year and what's going to look good in a headline this time next year. That's not the question.
What happens with priority in terms of if you've got a housing list, and then presumably it's not just a case of you join the bottom of the list and work your way up. People are going to be prioritised in certain ways. The issue you've got, and I know this isn't your area, but with all the underlying tensions around immigration at the moment, if the idea that, well, Indigenous British people...
Recently arrived migrants...
maybe jumping the key... Yeah. This is where it doesn't tie into the wider socio issues we've got at the minute.
No, and as you rightly say, I'm not an immigration expert, and it's not my place to have an opinion on that aspect of the policy. The thing that I can feel very confidently comment on is that if you have a priority, you necessarily are not prioritising the other thing. So you do have to commit to a priority, and it is a singular word. So whatever that priority is, all policy in relation to housing and in relation to immigration has to align with achieving that. Otherwise, we have no hope of achieving a better outcome for society.
You sound very sceptical already of Angela Rayner's housing plans.
No. It's in general, I think the issue is that a minister at the top is not actually in control of delivering the outcomes that are being promised, and that's the reason for my scepticism. I think that it's great that she's wanting to promise these things, and that's the starting point. It has to be the starting point. It's not necessarily deliverable, but let's see.
OK.
Wow.
We shall see. Thank you very much indeed.
It's a vote of confidence, isn't it?
Well, it's just when you look at something and you think, I can't see how that's going to make any sense. But we shall see.
It's got to, somewhere along the line, hasn't it? We just need more houses.
What never makes a lot of sense is somehow how the sport works out. But Aidan's going to make it all very, very clear in a couple of minutes.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Agents here. Hello.
We didn't know.
Hi. We didn't know who is going to introduce you. Do you want to talk about the Olympic closing ceremony yet, or do you have something else to talk about?
No. I think now is the time.
Lovely.
To discuss the closing ceremony, and they're taking it back into the stadium.
Thank heavens.
Yes, exactly, and I think it just allows less scope for things to go wrong.
Are all the costumes going to stay on this time?
Well, it's going to be a sort of show, a music show, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, we saw Tom Cruise yesterday at the Parc des Princes at the women's football Olympic, the gold medal game, and so we believe he's going to abseil down the side of the stadium. But they've kept it very sort of shrouded in mystery, a little bit like they did with Celine Dion, and we waited right to the end. So I think, but
we knew it was happening. So we know they're very.
Well, you weren't sure. You weren't sure.
No, I was just trying to be,
facetious,
journalistic.
Yeah, I suppose.
But Snoop Dogg is going to be in it.
Yes, he is. Well, he's been involved. Yeah, he has actually. You can't get him off the screen, can you? Yeah. But yeah, Tom Cruise. The link is because the handover is to the LA Games.
Oh, I see.
So that's the kind of the contrived link just there. But I mean, look, they're going to have other artists are going to be there. Thomas Jolly, the artistic director, has promised the audience to promise to take them on a journey through science fiction, and tracing the very origin of the games. Going back,
science fiction. I have no faith in Thomas Jolly.
Do you not? Why not?
Jolie?
No, after the opening ceremony.
Well, this sounds as though it's going to be very different. And haven't they said something about it's not just going to be in front of you in the stadium, it's going to be in the air?
Yes.
Which made me think about Cirque du Soleil. Are they going to do something?
I haven't seen that, but yeah, that would sound reasonable to me. There are
lots of drone shows.
There are some observances as well. They just have to do. I mean, there's a parade of athletes. They have to thank all the 45,000 volunteers as well. There's a medal ceremony
individually.
Yeah, I think. Well, they've set aside some
as long as the opening ceremony.
Yeah, exactly. They've got a medal ceremony as well for the women's marathon. That's going on this morning. So they're going to have that there as well. They're going to finish that off.
Yeah.
There's going to be the extinguishing of the Olympic flame, which again is a formality, and the proclamation of the Games ending. So there's going to be a handover. That proclamation is going to be made by Thomas Bach, who is the IOC president, but then there'll be an official handover to Paris from the respective mayors of each city, from Paris to LA.
And when Boris did it in Beijing,
I know.
Yes,
I was there watching him come out and do that, and he did look. Came out looking a right state.
I don't know, actually. I saw pictures of that the other day because it was on the front of a comedy that was written about. They're called 2012 with Hugh Bonneville in it. And I watched the series. It's very funny. At the very beginning, they've got that handover. I thought he was a lot tidier, certainly a bit younger in 2008 than they ever did when he was in government. You know. But the stars have changed. But no, the weather, and also the weather as well. We're hoping it won't be beset with the same problems that the opening ceremony was hit with. but it's open to the elements. There is a strong possibility of rain.
Oh, no, not again.
I know.
What a shame.
I know. And unfortunately, because Stade de France was built in '97, had it been a more modern stadium, I mean, there might have been a roof, yeah, but not everywhere. I mean, the Millennium Stadium has a roof, or the Principality Stadium in Wales has one, but Wembley was built quite relatively recently and doesn't. So, it's 6 of 1.
Mentioning the Cirque du Soleil, I remember watching, one of the female gymnasts,
yes,
floor gymnasts. I think she got a silver. I can't remember what country she was from, but she's got a job with the Cirque du Soleil. She's going to go on.
Yes. I think we covered it earlier in the Olympics. She said she wanted to do that. I think she'd been offered it before the Games, and she was going to take it up. Yeah, but I mean, there's been some great stories throughout this Olympics. We touched on Georgia Bell earlier on, and just taking a look back at the Olympics, I mean, it seems to go quite quickly for me. And I think it's
very quick.
It has. I think it kind of showed up the Euros a little bit, the football, because although England went to the final, I don't think the quality of football in the Euros was particularly great. I think the range of events is athletes we don't see very often. We can moan that they're not maybe as famous as they were. They're more successful, but maybe not as famous as they were 30-odd years ago. And the opening ceremony, look, you can divide opinion on that. And I think that was the whole aim of the game, actually, because you'd rather go...
So you were fuming the day after.
I wasn't fuming.
Were fuming.
I wasn't
Celine Dion rescued the whole...
She did. Thank heavens for Celine.
But it got us talking, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
And you need that at the start of the Games, because it's when it's competing for all our times, and the timing of the Games in terms of the sporting calendar is not ideal. It does have to compete with other things as well. And so I think that got us talking. We've got the boxing gender row was a little bit unedifying. I think that might threaten the future of boxing in the Olympics.
I think so, don't you?
I do. I think there might be a discussion, maybe not next time, but possibly the time after that.
Breakdancing's not in...
Well, no, not definitely.
I watched the gold medal final show of that.
And? I haven't seen it yet.
What a Lord of God swallow.
Was it?
But this was the
breakdancing.
The B girls. It was the women.
He told us off set. He's just jealous he can't do the moves anymore.
No, I tell you, it was just. I mean, no, I don't want to be disrespectful to them because it's a skill. Most of us can't do it. But how the heck they score it and do that? And it was all just all this sort of stuff. It was.
I didn't hear those noises. But...
I just thought this is awful.
Yeah.
It isn't a sport.
Well, they've had problems. They had problems with the food at the Olympic Village, which doesn't reflect well on any nation, especially a nation with
France,
such
of all places,
culinary expertise, at their disposal. And then there was the problems with the pollution in the Seine.
Yeah.
Having spent £1 billion trying to cure that problem, I mean, there have been stories of athletes throwing up sick.
Yes.
Which you don't want. So, but having said that, in terms of the actual sport that we've seen, the vast majority of it, I think it's been pretty good.
When does the Paralympics start?
Paralympics starts next week. So back end of next week, I believe. I'll get the exact date on that.
So there's a few days.
There is a few days. Yeah, exactly.
That'll be brilliant.
Yes, it will. It will. And so we'll get some more medals than that, I would have thought. And so, generally speaking, when we look back, I think we'll have decent memories of Paris 2024.
I think so.
And it's an off-the-peg Olympics. I believe. I was involved in back in 2012 on the lead up to it. I was working for Paris, funnily enough. But this is an off-the-peg Olympics. Sustainability is more important than it was 15, 20 years ago. They didn't build very much. Roland Garros was already there. Stade de France, as I mentioned, built in 1997. The Velodrome was already there. They didn't build a great deal. And if you look at the bill that came in, it was similar to what we paid for London 2012, which is quite surprising given inflation and how it's moved upwards in the last 12, 13 years. So.
And the windsurfing. Did you catch any of the windsurfing or this speed sailing or whatever they call it in Tahiti? Oh, that was fabulous too.
Did it look good?
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Well, they were the only ones looking happy in the opening ceremony, weren't
we
they?
Definitely got a medal in that too.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, in the kite surfing.
Kite surfing, that's it.
Kite surfing.
Yes, it was that young lady from Poole in Dorset.
She'd
been.
There was a young lady from Poole.
Yeah.
I'll come up with something.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
we'll come up with something next break.
Yeah,
can we take a quick look at the medal table? Have we got time?
Yeah. Just quick
butchers at that, because I'll tell you what's interesting is that I think it's 63 medals in total, and I don't think this point has been made often enough, because I think that as a sporting nation we do very well because of the number of sports we compete in at a high level. That there is 63 medals in 21 different events.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that compares to the rest.
And if they looked at totals, we would be right there, up there in the first three, I think.
Yes, I think they're right. Only China and the United States have fared better, so I think that's pretty good. Probably disappointed with the number of goals, but maybe I'm just being a tough taskmaster.
No, don't be disappointed. I think it's triumphant.
A quick mention, if we can, on Emma Hayes getting a gold medal in the gold medal game for the USA. begs the question, having just gone over there, could she have done that for Great Britain if we had a team?
Yeah.
It's a great achievement, though. She said it's the best achievement in her life.
Who is she?
Emma Hayes, she's the coach. She was the Chelsea coach for many years. She was Arsenal coach before that, achieved great things.
All right.
And she's gone to the US and repeated it over there.
Oh, well.
She's only just taken the job as well.
You didn't know that?
No.
No, nor did I.
Thank you. Papers in a minute with Tom Slater and Emma Wolf.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The sunny spell that many have experienced this week makes this the perfect time to seek inspiration for fresh, beautiful food to fit the weather. Hannah Harley-Young from Crazy Sexy Food joins me once again for the latest in our Taste of Britain series. And to go alongside the return of the glorious sunshine, she recommends tequila.
To be honest with you, it's more about my total love of tequila. It is my favourite drink. I have my favourite cocktail ready to be shaked for you in a second, which is obviously the margarita. But I think also I just love this sort of general story of tequila. Tequila, a bit like with champagne, can only be produced in the region of Tequila in Mexico. But I've actually brought for you, interestingly, a brand that is London-based. This was set up by Tom and Jack. They were drinking, I think, in sort of 2018, 2019, somewhere in South London, and realised that tequila could actually be quite enjoyable.
Do you know what it's made of?
It is. It's made from the blue agave plant. Now, 300 million of these plants are harvested every year. It takes between 8 to 12 years to harvest. Their tequila is made to be drank with tonic, which is not your usual accompaniment with tequila. Usually it's lime, it's a margarita. With a Blanco tequila, the idea is that the process is that once it's distilled, that is the end, it's bottled and it's sold. This is the Reposado. I haven't actually opened that, but if you don't want to have a smell, you can open it. But the idea behind this is that it's been rested, so it's rested in oak barrels. I actually love people's behaviour behind tequila now. I think back in the day it had a little slightly bad rep that you'd drink cheap shots and maybe make some bad mistakes on a night out, whereas now we're actually starting to appreciate it and respect it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Papers for you now, then, with editor of Spiked, Mr. Tom Slater, and journalist Ms. Emma Wolf. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, where's my list?
We get
oh, we'll start with that.
this morning.
You do.
Rishi Sunak, why did he go for a July the 4th election? There's Nadine Dorries has been talking about why she thinks.
She has. She's got a new book coming out.
There's a surprise.
Exactly. Typing away next to a signed headshot of Boris Johnson on this new book, and there are revelations contained within, one of which is that he actually allegedly had a bit of a wobble about the snap election after he'd already kind of decided upon it, and the reason he had to go through with it was just because the palace had already been informed and the wheels were already in motion and so on. And it's just kind of relitigating a lot of that argument about why did he go early. It seems like some of his kind of close advisors, people like James Forsyth, were quite in favour of it. They were worried that as the kind of months bore on, more and more people ending up on more expensive mortgages, for instance, that kind of thing kicking in. But then a lot of people, with hindsight, seem to have been vindicated to say, you know, we would have had these Bank of England cuts, the economic picture would have been slightly more rosy. Why did you wait?
The immigration picture's better. Mm-hmm. What else? Rwanda flights would have taken off.
Yeah, but there was... Do you remember that time? It feels like a different world, actually.
Yeah, it does.
I got quite excited when I read this headline. I thought, oh, maybe he had a wobble, like, at the very last minute. Like, he was in Downing Street and he had to go out into the rain, and he had a last minute, like, I can't do it. But it was more a few days before the wobble. But there was a sense at the time that immigration figures would get worse because of the summer and more people coming out. So it just... So many... And would it have made a difference? I mean, the defeat was so stonking that really we're talking maybe 120 seats rather than 121 or whatever it was. I mean, would it have made a significant difference?
I have to say, I think it was very... I do think it was not sensible timing. However, I was just so delighted...
To get it over with.
To get it out of the way.
Would we be better now heading towards this... In November, would we... I mean, what would the situation
be here? Well, the riots would still have happened, wouldn't they? Those poor little girls would still have been murdered.
It's so strange.
I don't know whether his government would have been able to face up to it any better than Keir Starmer.
Any differently, yeah, exactly.
Sunday Telegraph, Emma.
Yeah.
Me and Tom being asked if we're pregnant.
When you go for an extra...
This is one of those stories that I think is a bit of a storm in the teacup.
Yes.
I mean, this is NHS staff who are being informed, the guidelines are telling them, lots of NHS trusts are basically informing them that they should be checking, radiographers should be checking whether everybody from the age of 12 to 55 must be asked if they're pregnant, following an incident in which a trans man had a CT scan and was found to be pregnant. Radiation from cancer treatment and CT scans and things like that can be dangerous to unborn children. So everybody's up in arms, lots of campaigners are up in arms saying this is humiliating for patients, this is, you know, the NHS needs to return to common sense, which in one way I think we can all agree is true, but in another way, isn't it just screening everybody? I mean, it is kind of ludicrous, but it's sort of safety first approach, being inclusive, which I think we can all get behind, being inclusive of transgender, non-binary and intersex patients, not making assumptions about people, and just respecting people. It can get silly. I think it can get silly when we all have to identify pronouns and things like that. I find that a bit ludicrous when you just want to be seen and fill out a form and whatever. But actually, if there were a few people who have been harmed by this, if there are some infertile women apparently have found it quite traumatic and invasive, they've lost ovaries, they've had ectopic pregnancies, things like that. But I think for the majority, it's probably safer just to screen everybody and say, is there any risk you could be pregnant?
Of everybody.
I mean, the point is, though, I think it's a storm in a teacup because it's been going on for years.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, I remember with the form, and it, you know, and I just ignored the "Are you pregnant?" thing, and we said, "You haven't ticked this box." You just think, you know, I know you've got to tick the box.
Yeah.
And you just think, I'll tick the box.
Yes, exactly.
And it's.
And I think there are ways.
It might be irritating, but what does it actually matter?
I think done discreetly, I don't think anyone has a major problem with it. I think it also, the issue is when it kind of can actually get in the way of patient care, particularly if you're dealing with people who English isn't their first language, that kind of point in which, you know, questions that might just completely dumbfound them because they're unaware of the kind of niceties of gender issues and whatnot. Then it becomes a bit of a problem. Elderly patients as well, anything that might kind of confuse or bamboozle them in a moment where you want to kind of just get to the point of what treatment they need and what pathway needs to be taken down. But if it's a discrete thing, I don't think people have too much problems with it. And there are, where gender and healthcare are concerned, there are much bigger questions, single-sex wards, etc., which I think are a higher priority for people who care about these issues.
Yeah.
Don't get upset about it. It's not worth it.
You've got to pick your fights, haven't you? Here we go, Tom. Have we got time to squeeze it in? Men with longer fingers.
Yeah, so if you've got a long ring finger and you're male, you've got a higher chance of prostate cancer.
So your ring finger has to be longer than your index finger?
I think just longer than your average is the...
but a way of telling is to look at how long it is compared to your index
Is it creeping up towards your...
So where is your ring finger and index finger? Which one's bigger?
So, obviously, your index finger is always the...
Yeah, but that's the wrong hand.
And then... And then your ring finger there.
Your index finger is that one?
Yeah,
yes,
sorry, your
the one
index...
you point with.
Yeah.
finger and your ring finger there. So if it's creeping up over towards your middle finger, I should say, that's clearly.
So the point is, medically, the longer your ring finger, the more likely you are to get prostate cancer.
For people listening on the radio, Stephen has the most elegant hands with a beautiful wedding ring, couple of diamonds, and really beautifully manicured nails.
And
Stephen
his
Dixon's
ring
nails
finger
put me
is
to shame.
long.
Is almost as long as my
all
middle
men
finger.
should be getting checked regularly for prostate cancer. That's the important thing. It really can be dealt with quite early on, and it's very, very common to have prostate issues. That's what I think.
Well said.
Oh, very sensible.
It's true.
Right, and we'll see you both later on. Thanks very much indeed.
But right now, it's time for the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. Some mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further towards the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine, and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more clouds starting to build later on in the evening. But elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just a bit more of a breeze now picking up across the south coast. And that will continue as we go into Sunday evening with some strong and gusty winds across western areas. And this is helping to drive some showers that could be thundery through Monday, the early hours of Monday. Then across Northern Ireland, we'll see some heavy, thundery, showery rain, but temperatures staying up at around 17 to 20 degrees, so a humid and uncomfortable night as we go into Monday morning. But we do have a band of thundery, showery rain moving its way north and eastwards, affecting western parts of Scotland, so could give some difficult driving conditions with frequent lightning here and some gusty winds. Elsewhere, many places staying dry, sunny spells as well for most of us. The odd thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but highs up to 30, possibly even 33 degrees. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. Thousands take to the streets across the country in pro-refugee counter-protests.
The London headquarters of Reform UK are targeted.
Activists from Stand Up to Racism accuse Nigel Farage of fanning the flames of bigotry and Islamophobia.
The government scraps social housing plans. Angela Rayner has dropped Tory plans to prevent recently arrived migrants from applying for a council house.
As you saw there, President Zelensky has confirmed for the first time his military is conducting an offensive inside Russia.
And as the first people are jailed for riot-related social media posts, we're asking if you should face prison for what you write online.
It was another 6 medals for Team GB on the penultimate day of Paris 2024. We'll be looking back on the games ahead of tonight's closing ceremony at the Stade de France. Closer to home, it was Manchester City who prevailed over rivals United at Wembley as they won the Community Shield on penalties. More later.
We'll see things hotting up as we go through the next couple of days with plenty of sunshine on offer. But as we go through Monday, there is a risk of some thundery downpours for some. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and you're watching and listening to GB News Breakfast.
Loads of you got in touch this morning about a whole host of stuff, but about grandchildren and things. And I love this.
Yes.
This is all in honour of me becoming a great uncle next week.
Yeah.
Well, probably next week. Kim says, I was married at 16. Heck, that doesn't happen very often these days. We've been married 46 years, she said. I was a granny at 35, great-granny at 57. I've now got 9 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren. She says, I have no regrets about having children young. It's allowed me to enjoy my grandchildren and great-grandchildren at a wonderfully young age.
Oh,
that's really nice,
That sounds lovely. Yeah, Gillian says, I'm watching your breakfast show. I would like to say that I am a great-grandma. I'm 76 and have 5 great-grandchildren. The eldest is 13.
Oh, yes, it
must be lovely to have them all around you as well.
Well, I do think that's... I mean, I don't remember my great-grandparents at all.
No, I didn't know mine either.
I did meet my great-grandma Robinson, apparently, as a babe on her knee, but I've no memory of it.
I remember both my grandmothers very well, but no, certainly not great-grandmothers.
No, so I think
wonderful.
I think it's a lovely thing to be able to do that. How about you, Dave?
I never knew my grandfathers, either they were dead before I was born. I have a cousin who is in his mid-70s because my dad, despite being an older father, was also the youngest in his brood.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, I mean, I've got a niece who's 40 next year.
A niece who's 14.
Yeah. My sister's started popping them out young back in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice way of putting it.
I know. And
but that's the benefit of popping them out.
Yeah, it was the same on mum's and dad's side, actually. They both had the
Yeah.
same thing. They're both the youngest in their family by a little bit of a distance and had kids relatively late.
Oh, do get in touch if you're a great-grandma or even a greater great-grandma. Great-greats.
Great. There can't be any greats about, can there?
Well, the Queen wasn't she? She was a great-great-grandmother.
Was she?
Wasn't she? Was she? Oh, I don't know. I'm confused now.
No, I don't know.
She's certainly a grandmother.
And a great-grandmother.
And a great-grandmother.
Was she
I'm sure she's a great-grandmother. I'm sure she was a great-grandmother.
Was the Queen a
great-grandma?
Grandmother. Oh, it's just brought me up.
Yeah, you'll have to just go through all your royal family.
That's very, very common. On the fact that I'm going to live till I'm 120.
Are you?
Thanks to apple cider vinegar.
Ah, yes.
So loads of you talk about the mother in it.
Yes. Yes, because it's apparently apple cider vinegar with the mother.
Yeah, can I just come in on that, actually, because the actual container has... The mother capsules are a different colour. They're red, and the rest of them are all yellow. If you buy the gummies.
Oh, if you buy the gummies,
yes.
So Dee says, made with mother means it's raw and unfiltered, and often it's organic as well.
Charles says, I can't recommend apple cider vinegar enough. Best start to the day if you're looking to lose weight. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's
personally,
all of our
yes,
interests.
well, absolutely has. Personally, I take the gummies from Holland and Barrett before eating anything in the morning, and then I go for a 6-kilometre walk with my dog, and that burns the belly fat.
Oh, well, good.
That's why you're losing weight. Well done.
Michelle says the mother is the sediment from the apple, a bit like bits in orange juice. So,
that would
that's
make
the
sense.
unfiltered.
That's why it's called the mother. Yeah.
I always say it's the bits that do you good.
Yes,
you know, it's like
it's a bit of fibre.
Yeah. So there you go. So I can let you know that I have ordered, but I've gone for the tablets rather than the disgusting.
Yeah, but they were still with the
gummies.
But with mother.
You've got mother with it.
The gummies are quite moreish. You got to be careful.
Oh.
Just sling them all down.
Are they made with gelatin? I don't eat gelatin.
Don't know. I haven't checked the ingredients. I just slung them down my neck.
I have to always check that they're vegetarian. That's a ball.
How did we even get onto the subject?
I brought it up.
Apple cider vinegar?
Because my mother's started taking it and says she's been on it for 2 weeks, but just putting it in water. And she says, because I was moaning about the fact I haven't got a lot of energy at the minute, and she was saying that it's really perked her up.
That and a nice sleep. That tends to do you.
Oh, yeah, but she's not been sleeping. She's struggling with her sleep at the minute.
Yeah, but what about you? That's
oh, me? Yeah. Well, do you know what is weird? I'm very close to my mother, but we're, like, biologically in sync. If she's under the weather, I become under the weather and vice versa. It always seems to be. It's always been the same. It's really hard.
Do you speak most days?
Yeah, I speak to mum and dad both every day. Every day. Always have done.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say you reminded me of what I was telling you about. My dog has got exactly the same problems with the heart as I have.
Yeah.
And we're on the same medication. I mean, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Me and the dog.
Yeah, probably.
So you have to pay for yours.
Yeah, I have to pay through the nose. Yeah, well, for the dog as well, though. Yeah, the veterinary fees are ridiculous.
Yeah, we've got some stuff for the cat at the minute. It's got a thyroid issue, which is very common in older cats. But a 3-month supply of this stuff, and he has it twice a day, £137. And we're sort of down to the last third in this bottle, thinking, oh, God.
Yeah.
We have to fork out another 140 quid for this now.
Yeah.
They want to do another blood test. That's 170 quid. We haven't had it done yet.
Well, my little doggy had this heart problem. She had to go into doggy hospital for one night. 1,600. Yeah. Because she had to have, tests, blood tests. The minute they go anywhere near a laboratory for blood tests or anything like that...
On a separate point, I've got a cat hotel near me.
Oh, a cat hotel?
Yeah, have you seen those? Have you heard of those before?
I opened one.
What?
I opened a cat hotel.
But you mean just a cattery, a place that takes your dog?
Cat hotel.
They call them hotels.
Yeah.
The posh ones.
I don't think you can book them online, but you probably can actually.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they do breakfast a la carte or anything like that. But it says cat hotel.
Yeah.
Drive past it every day.
Yeah, I wonder if it's... No, it won't be. The one I opened was over in East Anglia somewhere.
Oh, OK.
But yes, I opened one.
They just keep it in a cage, do they? Or
no,
because it's called a hotel, do they have...
I think you get your own shower. I think you get your own shower cap.
Yeah.
No, they're always nice. You've got to have a decent cattery checked out by the...
Yeah.
Catteries Feline Association, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know, but if it's called a hotel, presumably it's more luxurious than just a cattery.
Well, possibly. Anyway, we better crack on with some news.
I suppose we really should.
Yeah. It is actually 2 weeks tomorrow since that horrific tragedy in Southport and the violence, of course, which followed. Hundreds of people are now going to be hauled before the courts. As a top prosecutor has warned, some could face a decade in prison.
But the anger the underlying anger still hasn't gone away. An anti-racism protest in London yesterday turned really heated as 2,000 protesters gathered outside Reform UK headquarters, where GB News reporter Charlie Peters and his cameraman were targeted.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me! Don't touch me! I will... He's touching me!
Film it, Stevie. Film it. Get your stuff. Get it back. Get it back.
I'm not getting it back. My job is your safety. No. Yeah.
Is that your bag?
Yes.
Matt, got to say, the police acted swiftly on that one. Police investigations, though, are moving online. They're trawling through social media accounts, looking for posts which may have incited or encouraged violence or spread disinformation.
Well, earlier on, we were joined by GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley.
Subsequent governments, one after the other, have said that they want to prosecute online crimes in exactly the same way as crimes in real life are prosecuted. Keir Starmer his response to these riots has been to essentially try and prosecute as many people as possible, get as many people behind bars as possible. And it seems to be working in that he's managed to open the courts for huge stretches. Lots of people asking why that hasn't been done before. And nearly 500 people have been arrested and nearly 150 already convicted of offences. Is that going to be enough? I think that's going to be the question for Keir Starmer over the next few weeks. His honeymoon period after the general election has ended quite dramatically. His popularity ratings are lower than they have been since that election, and are actually looking quite low for someone who won an enormous majority just 2 months ago, with over 50% of the population feeling that the Prime Minister hasn't been tough enough on rioters. So throwing people in prison, arresting people, getting the police to trawl through social media to find out who started all of this, it might not quite go far enough. There might have to be, as uncomfortable as Keir Starmer will probably find it, a conversation about what some people are saying, is the root cause of all of this, the immigration crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by the fact that people don't think he's being tough enough, because, I mean, to give him all due credit, he does seem to have come down very hard and very swiftly on people who've caused trouble, but doing that, as you say, without discussing the underlying issue, which obviously is not just going to go away.
Well, exactly. And I think that's just going to be a really, really big problem for him going forwards because of this sort of very strange electoral coalition he has. Every time a Prime Minister wins an enormous majority like this, we saw it with Tony Blair, we saw it with Margaret Thatcher, they have all sorts of people from very, very different corners of the population, totally different demographics, all voting for Labour. In this case, he's got sort of left-wing activists, many of whom have been out on the counter-protest, people who think that even talking about getting a hold on immigration is racist in itself. They voted for Keir Starmer, but so did sort of true blue Tories who were just fed up with the party at the last election and thought that they would give Labour a chance. And those people are much more likely to think that Keir Starmer hasn't been tough enough on the counter-protesters. So he's got to try and sort of hold this coalition together while giving some kind of coherent line on what he thinks Britain should do about immigration. As you say, Stephen, I mean, it does feel as though he's been as tough as he could be, opening the courts for these huge stretches, getting people convicted already. I mean, we've never seen the courts move this quickly. So it's really interesting that people are saying that he hasn't been tough enough. If people feel like that about these riots, then how are they going to feel when Labour carries on releasing more prisoners early from prison? What happens if those people start to re-offend? Keir Starmer, on the whole, it sounds as though his approach to law and order is going to be more lenient than the Conservative government before him. And this poll that suggests that people don't think he's being tough enough right now when he is being pretty tough probably doesn't bode too well for him.
Now, today marks 900 days since the war in Ukraine began. President Zelensky acknowledging for the first time that Ukraine is now conducting a military offensive inside Russia. That's in the Kursk region.
The surprise operation, which apparently began 5 days ago, has taken Russia by surprise and prompted massive evacuations across both sides of the border.
Well, it is a major development in the conflict between both nations. It does go to prove that Russia's war plan isn't currently working.
Earlier, we spoke to the defence editor of the Evening Standard, Robert Fox.
Also fascinating is that how little warning almost everybody got of this. The Ukraine military and political command, that's President Zelensky himself, did not inform their closest supporters and allies. Amongst the top echelon must be the US and the UK, that this was going to happen. And that's why it relates actually to the story you've just been running. Speculation online as to what is really going on. We know there is a major action. We can see that by satellite surveillance, and that comes through into the public domain. But what the intent of this is far from clear, because they have taken, in just over 5 days, 500 square kilometres, not quite sure what that makes in square miles, of territory. And they're not stopping at the moment. They're not pulling back, and they seem to be exploiting on different parts of this pocket that they've developed around Kursk, and that is really keeping Moscow guessing.
Where does this leave the West, Robert, in terms of all the munitions and weapons and training that we have supplied? If that is being used in an offensive capacity in Russia, does that put us in the firing line?
Not necessarily. It's put us in the firing line already, as we can see, in terms of propaganda. And dear old Britain gets more than its fair share of blame for being behind all this. But the trouble is that this kind of war, this multidimensional, a touch of the old and the very, very new, is an observer and a respecter of no frontiers. So you punch where you think your enemy is weakest, and you need to get to them. And one of the bits of news that came out yesterday is that the Ukrainians claim to have seized a major switching point for Russian gas going to Europe through a Ukrainian point, and countries in Western Europe are still getting Russian gas. This is a big blow, and we're going to have to see what the consequences are. But one of the things for the West that is absolutely clear is the ingenuity with which the Ukrainians have operated Western weapons and systems. And it's a real lesson for a country like the UK, which is about to reform its defences, how fast and how cleverly a country with a very low hand when it was attacked like Ukraine has been able to adapt, because it's done astonishing things in the past 5 days, which nobody expected them to do.
Right, it's 8:16. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning.
The funeral of the Southport stabbing victim Alice da Silva Aguiar will be held today at a local church in the area. She's the 9-year-old, and she was killed alongside 2 others, of course, that we know, at the Taylor Swift-themed dance class, and that was now on the 29th of July.
In the Olympics, Team GB added 6 more medals to their total yesterday. Today, of course, is the last day of the Olympics. We got 2 silvers, one for Caden Cunningham in Taekwondo. The other was historic, as Kate Shortman and Izzy Thorpe won Great Britain's first ever prize in the artistic swimming games. 3 bronzes in athletics, George Bell 3rd in the women's 1500 metres, followed by the men's and women's lineups in the 4x400 metre relays.
And earlier, diver Noah Williams also claimed bronze in the men's 10-metre platform.
Contractors have been hired to take down the latest Banksy in Cricklewood, northwest London. It's only just appeared, of course. Apparently, they were going to take the billboard down anyway on Monday, but they brought it forward in case someone rips it down and leaves it unsafe.
I wonder what they're going to do with it. Because clearly they ripped it down, the council did, before anyone else did. Really?
Yes, yes, it'll be claimed by the council, won't it? There'll be no doubt going up in their offices.
Framed, and yes, exactly. Yeah.
All sold.
Apparently, Banksy has owned up to those. He said on his Instagram account that yes, it was him, and he was just doing it because things are so dismal at the moment. He said, "I just thought I'd put some animals there in various places just to cheer people up." You're not impressed, but I love it. I love a Banksy.
I just sort of can't get behind it. I don't object to it massively. I just don't see the skill in it, really.
Ooh. I think most of his are skillful. These ones look very much more simple, but he's done them very, very quickly. He said just to cheer people up. I think it has that effect. Thank you.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Thank you, Banksy. I like you.
Oh, well, there you go. You probably get one on delivered to you now. Love from Banksy.
That would be nice. Thank you very much. Good idea.
Right, let's have a look at the weather for you. Here's Catherine.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. So mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further toward the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine, and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more clouds starting to build later on in the evening. But elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just a bit more of a breeze now picking up across the south coast. And that will continue as we go into Sunday evening with some strong and gusty winds across western areas. And this is helping to drive some showers that could be thundery through Monday, the early hours of Monday. Then across Northern Ireland, we'll see some heavy, thundery, showery rain, but temperatures staying up at around 17 to 20 degrees, so a humid and uncomfortable night as we go into Monday morning. But we do have a band of thundery, showery rain moving its way north and eastwards, affecting western parts of Scotland, so could give some difficult driving conditions with frequent lightning here and some gusty winds. Elsewhere, many places staying dry, sunny spells as well for most of us. The odd thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but highs up to 30, possibly even 33 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, it's the final 3 weeks now of our £30,000 Great British Giveaway, so there's still plenty of time to get your entry in. Here's how you do it.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, still to come, we're asking if you should face prison for what you write online. Talking about that next.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
We're joined now by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who is outside Buckingham Palace for us.
Well, let's start with the expenditure, shall we? From the last year, it was £89.1 million. That's what the royal household spent. And one of the core parts of that expenditure was, of course, their big event last May, the coronation. £800,000 went into that. And then we should look at the engagements. You mentioned the number that King Charles made last year. Well, £4.2 million on those engagements, much of that travel. And then finally, how much that costs us all? Well, it's £1.29 per person. That's the cost of the monarchy to the taxpayer. But that really hides the truth of how that cash comes about, because all of the money that the royal household spends is actually theirs being given back to them by the Treasury. It comes from the Crown Estate surplus. That's a £16 billion portfolio they have, and their sovereign grant is made up of the surplus from 2 years prior. So in the year to 2022, there was about £350 million knocking around from the surplus. That was given all to the Treasury, and they were given back 15% as their core sovereign grant. Additional 10% was given towards the resurfacing of Buckingham Palace. That's been going on since Parliament voted on it in 2017. It's expected to take 10 years. But all in all, that's been about £86.3 million. And as you heard, the expenditure was £89 million. So how do they mix that gap? How do they close that gap in and cost out? Well, they make their own money as well from additional sources of income. And that was the gates, the receipt to Windsor Castle and their many palaces across the country, where people have paid about £10 million to visit in the last year.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 8:25. Morning to you now. So Keir Starmer has suggested the government is going to review social media laws in the wake of the riots, saying they need to look more broadly at the sector.
And of course, this follows the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, saying that ministers need to check that the existing legislation that protects against online harm is fit for purpose.
Well, the Prime Minister warned that social media is not a law-free zone, as more sentences for online offences linked to the riots are expected.
So should you face prison for something you write online if it's deemed to be offensive or inciting riot or whatever? Joining us now, internet safety expert John Carr. Well, actually, I mean, Sir Keir Starmer is actually answering that question already, isn't he? Because he's saying people have now got to learn that they've got to be responsible for what they say online.
I think that's true and obviously right. The fact that you do something online doesn't change anything in principle at all. If you could be arrested for doing it in the physical world, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be arrested for doing exactly the same thing in the online world. I agree the practicalities are different, but in principle it's the same idea.
Yes, well, that's all well and good. The problem is we generally understand how laws operate in this country. People don't understand at the minute. They do not really think that there are any consequences for what they post online. This is the problem. So there is a lack of education, isn't there?
I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but I would remind you of the ancient principle: ignorance of the law is no excuse. And I don't think there can be anybody now, anywhere in Britain, in any doubt about the consequences of doing something which maybe, if you're right, 10 days ago they thought was okay. It's not okay, and there will be severe consequences for them in the future if they repeat that kind of thing.
But doesn't it reflect that, I mean, the fact that they haven't thought that already? I mean, how stupid are some people that if they write something absolutely offensive, or actually, and there have been instances we've already read about where supposedly intelligent people write go burn down those blinking hotels where migrants are staying. I mean, don't they think before they type?
Well, obviously not, because I would say that particular individual that you're referring to, and I read the full text of what she said, probably is going to end up in prison because it was completely horrific. The fact that she was doing it online, I mean, what was going on in her head at that moment? It's hard to imagine.
I mean, it's all well and good talking about what, on the surface at least, appear to be, you know, sort of reasonably clear-cut examples. The problems with this, as we see with any law, of course, is you've got to look at thresholds. You've got to look at intent.
Yeah.
And that is
true.
actually going to be quite difficult, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's a problem in principle in every crime. Showing intent isn't always easy. I have to say, though, we can't disregard the way in which certain key political figures have sort of fanned the flames. I mean, saying for a member of parliament to say, "Are we being told the truth?" You know, that's straight from the Trump playbook. Is sort of encouraging people to think there is some sort of establishment conspiracy to suppress the truth, and that doesn't help calm things down. It has the opposite effect. So I think people in positions of responsibility, particularly elected politicians, should reflect before they speak so loosely about in situations like these.
Yes, but you also have to allow people to have free speech and to ask what may be uncomfortable questions. Even if they're wrong, they've got to still be allowed to ask the questions, haven't they?
Oh, of course they do. Of course they do. But, you know, if you're in a crowded theatre and you shout fire, that's a breach of everybody else's rights to remain safe. So, I mean, I get your point, and I agree with it. People should be free to express themselves, but there are limits. And very often I mean, it's common sense. If you say, go and burn down the hotels and you don't care if they all die, there's no circumstances in which you could say that that's a reasonable exercise of your right to free speech.
I suppose some people have been in touch already and said maybe you should have to tick a box saying that you have read terms and conditions, or maybe even do a sort of a questionnaire before you're allowed an online account. That's probably not very practical, is it?
Yeah, well, not that long. Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, the same sorts of arguments were being made about 30 years ago when people said maybe you should have to do the equivalent of a driving test before you're allowed to open up an online account. And you can see why people are repeating things of that kind, because this behaviour is inexplicable otherwise. Complete idiots who, but they're not all idiots. Some of them are doing it entirely deliberately, knowing exactly what they're doing, stirring up racial hatred to follow their own political agenda.
But there's two sides to this, isn't there? I mean, it's people posting stuff irresponsibly, but it's also about the consumers here, isn't it? People who are going online, and you know, we all know people who say, "Oh, you never guess what I saw on Facebook yesterday." We've got to employ more critical thinking, haven't we?
We do, and the companies, and this is where I think Sadiq Khan may have had a point. I mean, the Online Safety Act hasn't yet been implemented in respect of these types of issues. The law was only passed by Parliament in October of last year. By the way, not a single person voted against it when it went through Parliament. It went through with all party support. But Ofcom, which is the internet regulator, hasn't yet spelt out how it intends to interpret key bits of it. But it could be that they didn't quite anticipate these types of situations, because what the Online Safety Act is principally about is dealing with systems, rather. And it's asking the companies to ensure that their systems can address these issues rather than looking at individual pieces of content. So the onus is very definitely, or rather equally, it's on the online businesses who are making gigantic amounts of money out of all of this unrest, by the way, and let's not forget that. So there's a very clear onus on them to try to ensure that this type of misinformation, disinformation, whether it's unintentional or intentional, isn't allowed to spread, with the terrible consequences that we've seen on our streets over the past few days.
OK, John Carr, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be discussing it again a bit later on in the programme. And I think there may be a lot of people watching who just retweet things that they find interesting. or that they agree with and they believe are true. If the police are going to follow through with these things, how protected or how guilty are you if you've just retweeted somebody else's thoughts?
If you believed it to be true, then surely you can't be done, because it's about intent, isn't it? But I say it's one of those things where you've got to be very careful about what you believe.
Yes. So, for instance, the tweet that did the rounds after the terrible stabbing incident in Southport, which claimed to identify the perpetrator and the fact that he was an illegal migrant who'd come over in a boat across the channel a year before or something, which was all completely untrue. But if you retweeted that just thinking, oh, that's interesting, you know, if you just retweeted that, would you be as guilty as the person who made it up in the first place?
Well, this is the problem. These are the details you've got to sort out with all this sort of thing. You know, so that's the threshold issue. It's not just that clear cut. That's the problem. But perhaps we all need, in the wake of it, we all need to think, let's be careful what we believe, and let's be careful what we say, and let's be careful what we retweet, because, you know, with the potential of putting yourself into trouble.
And maybe check it out with a bona fide news website.
Of your choosing. gbnews.com is available.
Yes, that's very true.
Right, final day of the Olympics, and it's the closing ceremony tonight. We're going to get all the details from Aidan in just a minute.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Aidan's got the sport for us this morning. Billie Eilish. Right?
Yep.
I'm sure she's a very big star. She is, yeah. But why is she performing at the Olympics tonight?
Well, why not? Why not? She's a big star. They're trying to appeal to a younger audience. Remember, this is the last kind of Olympic activity, apart from the Paralympics, which starts on the 28th of August. That we'll see.
Well, you could say the same about Celine Dion, couldn't you? What's
Well,
she got to
yes.
do with the Olympics?
Well, no, true.
She was
Well, you
brilliant.
need star quality, don't you? You need star quality.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they've got
They
a
want
link
to
with the
put on a big
Olympics.
show.
It's very rare that you'll find a performing artist who has a link with sport, you know. So I don't see why Billie Eilish shouldn't be involved. You've got to carry it through to the next, or keep the flame going, literally, until 2028, and that's probably why they got Tom Cruise involved as well. We think he's going to be involved. He's going to be abseiling down the stand. He was at the Parc des Princes yesterday watching the USA win the gold medal match against Brazil.
He does most of his own stunts anyway, doesn't he?
He does indeed. He does. He always has. And so, look, I think it's going to be. There are observances that have to be played out on the day as well. But bringing in the stadium allows them a little bit more control. We're going to see the parade of athletes, the thanking of 45,000 volunteers. Not sure how they're going to do that, as Stephen said last hour. I doubt it'll be individually.
A lot of them there, I suppose, wouldn't they?
And the extinguishing of the Olympic flame. We're going to have the proclamation of the end of the Games. That's going to be from the IOC President Thomas Bach. And there will be the handing over of the Olympic flag between the two mayors of the respective cities, Paris and LA, and that's obviously the link as well with LA with Tom Cruise.
Can I just ask, what I found fascinating, especially since they were showcasing Paris in so many of the activities, all of the signs that are anything to do with the sport and anything to do with the event are all in English. Is English the language of the Olympics?
I don't think they would officially.
To go French.
I doubt there's any kind of official guidance on that, but it's just ease, isn't it? It's ease of access. It's
You
ease
do
of access
everything
to
in
it.
French. Like when they do the announcements, it's always done in French and English.
You hear
All
commentary.
Olympics.
You hear commentary inside the stadium.
It's in English.
In English, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the most widely spoken language in the world. I would have thought, certainly in the Western world.
Maybe that's the decision, actually. Yeah,
Yes.
it's spoken by most of the participating countries.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't even have regarded back in the day. I wouldn't have regarded as France as a major Olympic nation anyway in terms of the number of athletes they put forward. But 450 this time.
The French are pretty stroppy about these sort of things. You'd think in Paris they would want it to be all the signs to be in French, but they weren't.
I know. What have your impressions of the Olympics been, though? Would you say?
I think it's been
good?
fantastic.
Have you watched most of it?
And I have loved the way it has showcased Paris. You were watching all the, the running around the various places, and there's one particularly good commentator who clearly knows his Paris really well, and he'll say, "Oh, at the moment they're running past the Musée de so-and-so. Very nice
Is that
place."
the Scottish guy?
No, he wasn't. No, not the one I'm... But there are several, but he could actually tell you about the landmarks you were seeing, and he could actually recommend the coffee in certain places. I just thought he brought it to life. Yeah, but it brought Paris to life.
You see, the reason I thought it was Billie Eilish and Tom Cruise and all that sort of thing.
Snoop Dogg?
It's Snoop Dogg.
Do you remember,
No, because I'm looking back at the 2012 Olympics, where in the closing ceremony, the performances, we got Annie Lennox, Fatboy Slim, George Michael, Victoria Beckham and the Spice Girls did the opening ceremony, David Bowie, Muse, Madness, Eric Idle doing Monty Python stuff. We featured Freddie Mercury and John Lennon. It was all about Brits.
We did throw some money out, didn't we?
Yeah, but this I mean, there's been one or two French performers in this one, the opening ceremony, but not many.
No, Air are going to be involved this time.
Air?
Air. Yeah, remember they had a song back in 1998?
Yes, what was it?
I can't remember. Breathe, I think it was called. I might be wrong.
I remember the name.
It was when the second year at university for me. So, but they're going to be involved tonight. I say they, it might be
waiting for a punchline, but there isn't.
No, not everything I say is a joke. Although some would like it to be.
But Snoop Dogg is interesting because he's going to perform, but he's been there throughout.
Yeah, he's been.
I thought, is he just so madly keen on the Olympics? Well, yes, he is. But he's been commentating for NBC or ABC,
yes, he has,
the big American stations. Yeah. So he's been very involved.
Look, there have been problems as well. There's been severe pollution in the Seine, which has caused a lot of embarrassment in terms of the athletes falling ill. There was the divisive nature of the opening ceremony, but I do think that was by design, Anne. I do think that was designed to get people talking because it's competing at the time of year with other sporting attractions as well, which occupy our time and our headspace. And, of course, there was the controversy around the boxing. I think a decision has to be made on that. I think we might see an end sometime in the next 10 years to boxing at the Olympics and probably breakdancing as well. I don't think that's been particularly successful at this one.
Terribly.
But other ones like the climbing has been great. I think in terms of the sport we've seen, by and large, we've been quite impressed.
Mm.
And
Yes,
you
very.
can make. No, you're not going to please everybody, are you?
No,
in terms of the whole event, I'm sure there were criticisms of London 2012, but we were just
Tom
about
James
like
get a
it.
medal, by the way.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yes, he did.
What did he get?
He got a silver.
Oh, right.
That was one of the early ones, wasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. And if you look at the number of medals we got as well, I mean, there's still a few more we can go for today, by the way. But I think 63 were on. And
I think we've done extraordinarily well.
But 63. And if you look at the number of events we achieved, those over 21 different events, we're showing real versatility. Because back in the day, if you remember, we were quite good on the track, good in the water, decent in the pool as well, which is the water, of course. But you know that. But in terms of the number,
your knowledge,
I know. In terms of the number of events, I mean, I think that's quite outstanding.
Yeah.
But the coverage has been brilliant as well. The way it's filmed now, you know, the way you've got to multi-choice and there's always something going on, and I think that, and clearly very good commentaries from people who know what they're talking about.
A lot of people take umbrage to the amount of money that goes into it from the lottery.
Well, it's the feel-good factor. I think
it's money quite
priceless.
well spent. Do you not?
Yeah.
Well, it brings money. Well, it ultimately brings money in the long term. Yeah, that's the idea.
But it's showcasing the talent of different countries.
Yes.
And I think we can be so proud of our athletes.
And it's loaded in terms of merit as well. You don't get the funding unless you've got a real chance of winning the medal. I don't think a lot of people have got a problem with that. And if you don't fare well, you get your funding reduced or withdrawn altogether. Them's the rules.
Yeah. No, I think it's brilliant. Really do.
Well, the rules is you're run out of time.
Yeah.
So
I can see you look gutted.
I am gutted.
Sorry about that.
We've got the papers to squeeze in.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you very much indeed. And doing the papers today, Tom Slater and Emma Wolfe. So we'll see them in just a moment.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a very difficult issue, this, right? As far as we know, the boxer with male chromosomes was born with female genitalia.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite simple. You know, sex in humans is binary and immutable because we are mammals. And there is a minority of people who have disorders of sexual development, and that can affect a person's reproductive organs. But these people are male or female. And yesterday, what we witnessed was basically just glorified male violence against women and girls. The difference is, I mean, that happens every day all over the world. And the difference is that in every other circumstance, we consider beating up women to be wrong, but it was deemed acceptable by those at the IOC because they're claiming that it's sport, but it's not. It's violence and it's wrong.
Peter, Lottie's right, isn't she, that we've been talking a lot recently about violence against women and girls, and regardless of whether this person is intersex or transgender, they have male chromosomes. That means they have a very, very distinct biological advantage that could actually be fatal to a female athlete competing against them.
Well, of course, sport does need to be fair, and we do need to examine this case very thoroughly. There are reports that the boxer, Iman Khalif, was born a biological woman. She is not transgender. She is not non-binary. She is not intersex. She may have elevated levels of testosterone, but that's entirely natural. It's beyond her control. It's the way she was born. And that is why the International Olympic Committee has said that she falls within the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's take you through the papers this morning with the editor of Spike, Tom Slater, and the journalist Emma Wolfe. Can we have a look, Emma, just to give us something to raise our eyebrows about? Sunday Express, the Colombian crime hell, which is awaiting the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
Yeah, so Meghan and Harry and Meghan are heading to Colombia later this month, and a historian has been saying they're heading into hell.
They're sort of doing a royal visit.
They're doing a royal visit. They've been invited by the Vice President, Franco Marquez. They're going to be given full military protection when they're there. They're going to have their 4-person security team as they head in Nigeria. But this historian is saying it's Nigeria on steroids. The murder rate of Colombia is 8 times higher than that of America, which is pretty high. Last year in Colombia, there were 13,500 murders and hundreds of arrests. Kidnappings, some quite high-profile targets. And it's extremely dangerous. I mean, this is all kind of been highlighted by the fact that we know they have, Harry especially, has major security concerns about bringing his family to this country. And yet...
They're going to be so much protection.
There they are, off to Colombia.
It's a way to do it.
Tom?
Indeed.
It was funny, wasn't it? Because saying that they couldn't stay in the UK because of security fears, and then you go to, you know, one of the murder and kidnapping capitals of the world. But, you know, this is the nature of Harry and Meghan. As you say, it's a good way to travel around Colombia with, like, an armed army security detail. Certainly put your mind at rest. But, yeah, I think another reminder of the ridiculousness of them. I wonder if, especially where Meghan's concerned, because a lot of Americans go to Colombia quite a lot. It's quite a kind of big tourist destination for them. So maybe it's just isn't seen in the kind of scary light that maybe some Brits...
Why are they going? I mean, what is this going to achieve?
It does sound like it's almost like as you said, Emma, it's almost like a quasi... royal visit.
Yeah.
And I do think they see... There was talk previously that they were going out there to, you know, continue their charitable endeavours. You know, they'd be talking about mental health and so on. But there is an element of them wanting to kind of maintain some of the royal trappings and still enjoy that pomp and ceremony.
Very much so, yeah. I think so.
Well, like we go on holiday, they go on a royal tour.
Yeah.
And interestingly, our Foreign Office advises against travel to Colombia. Only essential visits should be made. So that's the kind of level of security that it's...
certain areas,
It's at certain areas.
Large parts of the country, they say, just don't go to at all. But, you know, the big cities, you know...
And as you say, they'll have absolutely the fullest security.
Yeah. Can we have a bit of Olympic action, Tom? In the Mail on Sunday, where there was a beach volleyball got a bit nasty.
It did. This was the final between Canada and Brazil in the women's beach volleyball. Descended into a lot of finger pointing and arguing. One of the players was given a yellow card. Really descended into a shouting match. And then the DJ in the arena decided to put on John Lennon's Imagine, and it just completely solved the situation because everyone just broke out into laughter. And then in the crowd, they actually basically had a sing-along. So it was kind of a genius move on his part to diffuse that situation, also get another kind of funny moment from this.
Yeah, I think that's quite nice.
That is lovely,
actually.
yes. The calming nature. John Lennon would be proud.
Amazing that song still has the power to do that. I think we need a bit of that, just blaring out. That would be quite weird in North Korea, wouldn't it, to have sort of speakers on every corner, but we could play calming music to everybody
music.
across the streets of the UK.
Yeah.
Deary me. Yeah.
Good.
We've got a bit of Banksy on Sunday, Emma.
Banksy's been very busy. Do you want to know what he's been up to? In the last few days, so we had a goat that suddenly appeared on Kew Bridge. These are all London places. I have to apologise to people outside of London. We had the next day 2 elephant silhouettes in Chelsea. Then we had a trio of swinging monkeys on a railway bridge in Brick Lane, East London. Then we had a howling wolf on a satellite dish in Peckham, which is southeast London. Then we had a mural of 2 pelicans gulping down fish on a fish and chip shop on the wall in Walthamstow. And then we just had this large black cat which has appeared on an empty billboard in Cricklewood. And there's a sort of row about it because someone tried to chip it away, as people always do. They tried to remove it to get the artwork. Then I think they covered it up. Somebody covered it up because the police were concerned that people were filling up the streets to go and view it. Is he really doing all this? Does he have a team of people?
He's admitted on Instagram that he's been doing that. He said on his Instagram account that the world seemed to be a pretty miserable place at the moment, and he just wanted to have these pop-up animals just to cheer people up.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. But, I mean, it's a lot of work in 6 days, isn't it, to get through all these different animals.
Although it does look as though he spray-painted them, probably from a
stencil.
Cutout. Yeah.
Well, can you come round mine and do something on my wall, please?
Just sign it.
Of course they will, exactly.
Tom, I was watching the breakdancing final for the women yesterday. Don't ask me why. I thought it was horrific. But no one's getting as much stick as the Australian contestant.
Yes.
Why? What did he do?
This is very funny.
Dr. Rachel Gunn, who has gone viral with her routine, which made me cringe so hard I thought I'd ruptured some internal organs. It was essentially, if you were to come up with a caricature of what the Australian breakdancing entry might be, you'd end up with an Australian academic who studies breakdancing at Macquarie University and its cultural history and significance. But she was doing a kangaroo act at one point, kind of hopping around. She ended up getting 0 points from the judges. So this is not to say this is representative of the art form itself. She was widely mocked. Even people within the kind of breakdancing world have said it set the sport back. It's weird to talk about it as a sport,
looks
but
as
here
though
we
she's
are.
doing it in her scrubs, doesn't
People were saying, is she touching her toes? Is she trying to kick her duvet off at night? What's she doing? But do you know what she said? She said something quite nice. Don't be afraid to be different. Go out there and represent yourself. You never know where that's going to take you. And I mean, yeah, she did. It was hilariously bad.
Yeah.
But good for her, and she's got her name in lights.
Don't
and
be
you
afraid
know,
to humiliate yourself in front of
don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
That's a good lesson.
Oh, she's managed that. Well done, her.
Yes, she has.
Right, been good to see you both. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let's get the latest weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. Some mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further towards the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine, and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more cloud starting to build later on in the evening. But elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just a bit more of a breeze now picking up across the south coast. And that will continue as we go into Sunday evening with some strong and gusty winds across western areas. And this is helping to drive some showers that could be thundery through Monday, the early hours of Monday. Then across Northern Ireland, we'll see some heavy, thundery, showery rain, but temperatures staying up at around 17 to 20 degrees, so a humid and uncomfortable night as we go into Monday morning. But we do have a band of thundery, showery rain moving its way north and eastwards, affecting western parts of Scotland, so could give some difficult driving conditions with frequent lightning here and some gusty winds. Elsewhere, many places staying dry, sunny spells as well for most of us. The odd thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but highs up to 30, possibly even 33 degrees. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You really could become the next giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt just a lot nicer. We went out for dinner, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster, Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on the
hi.
show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, you know, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, you know, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think pretty fairly priced products, and even more so, go and see the gardens. You know, as we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Thousands take to the streets across the country in pro-refugee counter-protests.
The London headquarters of Reform UK are targeted.
Activists from Stand Up to Racism are accusing Nigel Farage of fanning the flames of bigotry and Islamophobia.
900 days of the Ukraine war. President Zelensky confirms for the first time that his military is conducting an offensive inside Russia.
The first people are being jailed for riot-related social media posts. We'll be asking, should you really face prison for what you write online?
We'll see things hotting up as we go through the next couple of days with plenty of sunshine on offer. But as we go through Monday, there is a risk of some thundery downpours for some. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
Just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
You're going to be sorry that the Olympics is over.
I will, but I'm looking forward to the Paralympics because
Yes.
in 2012 I didn't manage to get tickets to the main Olympics, but we did get tickets to the Paralympics, and we had the most fabulous day. It was brilliant.
2012 was the year when the Paralympics kicked up a gear,
Yeah.
when it suddenly got the recognition it should have had as being on a par. And I think that's been maintained. So actually, I think it's as much.
It was sensational, and the atmosphere was so brilliant. And you remember all the what did we call them? All the game makers. Was it game makers?
Oh yes, yeah, the volunteers.
The volunteers who were fabulous as well. It just was a festival atmosphere. It was just lovely.
So yeah, Paralympics are lots.
So I look forward to that. I hope the Parisians do it as well as they've done the first. I don't know about the opening ceremony, but we'll be sceptical about the opening ceremony. But we'll see.
Closing ceremony tonight, though, and let's hope that's a bit more conventional.
Conventional show busy.
Yeah, well, it
Maybe.
looks
That's
like
what
it
we
might
need.
be.
Yeah.
Right, it is almost 2 weeks since we saw that horrific tragedy in Southport, and of course the violence which followed. And hundreds of people are now being hauled before the courts. As a top prosecutor is warning, some could potentially face up to 10 years in prison.
But the anger still hasn't gone away. An anti-racism protest in London yesterday turned quite heated as 2,000 protesters gathered outside the Reform UK headquarters, where GB News reporter Charlie Peters and his cameramen were targeted.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me! I will... He's touching me! He's touching me! Film it, Stevie. Film it. Get your stuff. Get it back. Get it back.
I'm not putting it back. My job is your safety. No.
Heck.
I know.
Getting sort of rather overwrought.
Unnecessary and unpleasant.
Well, it is. There's no
need to happen like that.
There's just
did it?
no need for any of
It's
that.
meant to be a peaceful protest.
Well, police investigations are now moving online, trawling through social media accounts, searching for posts, apparently, which may have incited or encouraged violence or spread disinformation.
Yeah, and there are some people already in police custody now awaiting a court appearance on those very things. They posted something online which has been deemed to be a real problem and possibly troublemaking. Well, joining us now ahead of her programme at 9:30 this morning, Camilla Tominey. Hi there, Camilla. It is amazing how Keir Starmer is following this right through, by the look of it.
Yes, I mean, he's certainly kind of living up to his reputation as a former director of public prosecution, seeing this very much as a case to be prosecuted and making sure that those lengthy prison sentences are doled out expediently. I think we've seen the justice system work very swiftly. The question this morning, though, is it right necessarily to imprison those who have incited violence online? Of course, it's a very, very serious crime, but one would want to hold the tech giants responsible who have done nothing about controlling misinformation on social media. You'd also want to be targeting high-profile figures with the following that they have, where they should be more responsible. But personally speaking, I mean, with the prisons as full as they are and the prisons apparently in crisis, wouldn't we rather those who were behaving badly online actually were asked to do community service in the form of cleaning up the places that have been wrecked by rioters?
Well, I mean, look, maybe that's something which is going to be looked at in all of this. However, I mean, on the political front, as you say, Keir Starmer acting very much as a prosecutor rather than a politician, some could argue, in this, because he's cracking down on the violence. What he's not doing, doesn't seem to be doing, is pouring any oil on the troubled waters.
No, that's right. I mean, to be honest, Stephen, when he keeps on being asked this week what he wants to say about the underlying causes of this and this idea that some communities in the UK, particularly seemingly in the north, haven't properly integrated. And we've seen huge tension, haven't we, between different parts of the community. And blame has been apportioned to one part and not to others who have also been acting in an aggressive and unacceptable manner. So I shall be asking my guests today, which include the Tory leadership candidate Mel Stride. He's the former Work and Pensions Secretary, now in a shadow cabinet role in that position. He's an interesting one because he's the underdog of all this. He's very much the outside chance of getting anywhere close to being in the final two. Let's hear from him what he thinks the Tory approach would be. Also, when it comes to Labour, and quite a lot of reporting this morning about tensions already building up in Keir Starmer's inner circle, Sue Gray apparently at odds with the Cabinet Secretary Simon Case, and then Rachel Reeves sort of road testing some of the policies she might introduce in the budget, including pay rises. Public sector pay rises are going to go up anyway, but now there's talk about putting the minimum wage up by 4%. I'm going to be speaking to former Tory bigwig Sir John Redwood about that. He was Thatcher's economics advisor. We'll see what he makes of those economic policies. Will they be inflationary? And also on the law and order front, I'm going to be speaking to former top cop Kevin Hurley, and I'll ask him whether there is two-tier policing in Britain. And I've got two prisoner officers as well coming in, Steve and Val from Tempus Novo, which is all about rehabilitation. But I'd like to get their inside take on what they think should happen to some of those involved in the riots, because the prisons are full. And should prisons just be reserved for very serious criminals, people accused of sex crimes, rather than necessarily people who have had their thoughts policed on social media?
Yeah, but not... Well, yes, actually, that's an interesting way of putting it. It's their thoughts, but it's the fact that they're publishing them. And there certainly is a demonstration that they do seem to incite violence in others. Makes you wonder what we are as human beings, that some people online just lose their sense, don't they? They don't understand they don't fully understand what they're doing, I think, when they say these things online. And today there's a story about the fact that they're going to integrate some sort of, what do they call it, critical thinking. Into schools now, into lessons for children.
I think that's a good idea because I think children, particularly if they're getting a diet of fake news from TikTok and the like, can't really tell the wood from the trees. However, I still put the onus on tech giants. I mean, at the Telegraph where I work, we have a system which roots out inappropriate comments for inciting violence or racial abuse or homophobia. Why do these tech giants, when they are making so much money, seemingly have an inability to properly control online information? And then we get into a debate about Elon Musk. You know, the billionaire owner of X has been responsible only this week for retweeting a fake Telegraph headline. So it needs to start at the top, doesn't it, when it comes to the dissemination of news that isn't real and is fake. We can't blame kids if they pick up on this stuff if the adults can't behave themselves.
Oh, no, it was a fair point. It's a fair point. Camilla, we'll see you at 9:30. Thanks very much indeed.
It's interesting because Elon Musk has been very critical in some of his recent posts about Keir Starmer, sort of labelling him ineffective and robotic and things like that. Maybe it's time for Keir Starmer to get tough back at Elon Musk.
Well, I think he's tried, in a way, but whether... It's such a difficult area. You know, 20-odd years ago, we were all saying, how do you police the internet? And no one had an answer. And we still don't have an answer to any of it.
But wasn't it was Tony Blair, wasn't it, who said he wanted to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime?
Yes, that was Tony Blair.
And maybe that's what... Keir Starmer is clearly being tough on crime at the moment. That's what he's trying to do at the moment. But is he thinking of the causes of this unrest? But you've been going on about that for a couple of weeks now, haven't you?
Well, yeah, because
the fact that there's underlying disquiet, unhappy-ness.
And you know what? It's all about language, because, you know, and it's not to in any way condone any of the violence. That's a separate issue. What you have to look at is the fact that it is indicative of the fact there are lots of people in the country who feel very uncomfortable about, not even necessarily about the fact that there is immigration, but it appears to be uncontrolled immigration. And yet all of that is being lost when you suddenly say it's far right, because then you're just labelling anyone who dares voice a concern as far right.
Yeah, and we've had so many people get in touch saying, I'm concerned, I'm upset, I feel like protesting peacefully, and I am not far right. Don't call me far right, because I'm not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lots of people very upset.
Yeah, this is the issue, and you've got to look at that. That's the oil on troubled waters, that you've got to start looking at that, rather than people feeling alienated, which doesn't help.
Right, let's move on to the situation with Ukraine and Russia, because today marks 900 days since the war in Ukraine began. President Zelensky has acknowledged for the first time that Ukraine is conducting a military offensive inside Russia's western Kursk region.
Well, the surprise operation started 5 days ago. It's taken Russia by surprise and has apparently prompted mass evacuations on both sides of the border.
And, of course, this marks a major development in the conflict between both nations, proving, perhaps, that Russia's war is not going according to plan.
Earlier, we spoke to the defence editor of the Evening Standard, Robert Fox.
Also fascinating is that how little warning almost everybody got of this. The Ukraine military and political command, that's President Zelensky himself, did not inform their closest supporters and allies. Amongst the top echelon must be the US and the UK, that this was going to happen. And that's why it relates actually to the story you've just been running. Speculation online as to what is really going on. We know there is a major action. We can see that by satellite surveillance, and that has come through into the public domain. But what the intent of this is far from clear, because they have taken, in just over 5 days, 500 square kilometres, not quite sure what that makes in square miles, of territory, and they're not stopping at the moment. They're not pulling back, and they seem to be exploiting on different parts of this pocket that they've developed round Kursk, and that is really keeping Moscow guessing.
Where does this leave the West, Robert, in terms of all the munitions and weapons and training that we have supplied? If that is being used in an offensive capacity in Russia, does that put us in the firing line?
Not necessarily. It's put us in the firing line already, as we can see, in terms of propaganda. And dear old Britain gets more than its fair share of blame for being behind all this. But the trouble is that this kind of war, this multidimensional, a touch of the old and the very, very new, is an observer and a respecter of no frontiers. So you punch where you think your enemy is weakest, and you need to get to them. And one of the bits of news that came out yesterday is that the Ukrainians claim to have seized a major switching point for Russian gas going to Europe through a Ukrainian point, and countries in Western Europe are still getting Russian gas. This is a big blow, and we're going to have to see what the consequences are. But one of the things for the West that is absolutely clear is the ingenuity with which the Ukrainians have operated Western weapons and systems. And it's a real lesson for a country like the UK, which is about to reform its defences, how fast and how cleverly a country with a very low hand when it was attacked like Ukraine has been able to adapt, because it's done astonishing things in the past 5 days, which nobody expected them to do.
So there you are, 900 days since that war started. I wonder how much longer it will go on.
Dread to think. Let's change tack, because it is we're down to the last final 3 weeks of our Great British Giveaway. Plenty of time to enter, where you could win £30,000. Here's how you could do it.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, do stick with us, because we're going to be asking more about what you write online, and if it's the wrong sort of thing, should you face prison for it? Don't go away.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have announced a tour to Colombia at the invitation of Vice President Francia Marquez. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are expected to highlight the threat posed to children by the internet. Why they have to go to Colombia to do that, I'm not entirely sure. However, this is literally within a week of saying that Harry saying he can't come to London. He doesn't feel it's safe to bring his wife, Meghan, to London because, he fears for her personal safety. And Colombia, to my reckoning, is one of those countries where the government advise you not to even go. In any case, joining me now is royal broadcaster and commentator Rafe Hedder-Mancu to explain what's going on here. Rafe, hello, lovely to see you.
Hello, lovely as always. A bit of comic relief here. Yes, so you're quite right. You know, literally just days after Prince Harry declared that he couldn't bring his wife to Britain because of the potential risk of an acid attack or knife attack, they've now announced that they're going to go to Colombia, one of the world's 10 most dangerous countries. Right. A nation riven with political assassinations, with murder, with kidnappings and gun crime. I mean, you know, the hypocrisy is mind-boggling. And it just comes a few months after they went on another trip to Nigeria, another world leader in murder and political kidnappings. Now, look, no one is saying that they're going to be putting themselves into harm's way. They're going there at the invitation of this radically left-wing government. And, of course, we've had successful royal tours of Colombia in the past. Just last year, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, went to Colombia. 10 years ago, our current King and Queen also had a successful trip to Colombia. But that's rather the point. If members of the royal family are able to go to the world's most dangerous nations, the idea that they can't come to the UK because it's too dangerous is simply absurd.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has suggested the government will review our social media laws in the wake of the riots, saying they need to look more broadly at the sector.
And this follows the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, saying that ministers have got to check that the existing legislation, which is meant to protect us against online harm, and ask, is it fit for purpose?
Yeah, probably not, because this isn't about harming. It's a difficult one, isn't it? 'Cause it's about incitement. Now, inciting others to do things, misinformation. The PM said social media is not a law-free zone, and more sentences for online offences linked to the riots are expected.
Yeah, in fact, one of the very top lawyers, I think, from the Department of Public Prosecutions, has said some sentences may be up to 10 years for what we've already endured. Joining us now, social media expert Alan Stevens. Good morning, Alan. Do you think for retweeting something offensive or for saying, just sort of expressing your thoughts, yes, even though they're offensive, actually deserves prison in any case?
Well, and with all these things, it depends on the context, of course. And you look at the context and you say, was that intended to be insulting, abusive, and to cause harm? And the same laws apply. It's the Public Order Act. Same laws apply online as offline. Laws of libel also apply. But there is a test of reasonableness. If it's something that a reasonable person could have been expected to say in a reasonable circumstance, that's a defence. And I think that defence will be used quite a lot.
Yeah, but, I mean, this is what becomes slightly problematic, isn't it? Because I mean, a lot of this is down to perception in the court, particularly now.
Absolutely so, Stephen. A lot of it is down to perception. In fact, virtually everything is down to perception. It's whether people make the judgment that you intended to insult or abuse somebody or incite somebody to take an act. I mean, it's fairly obvious that if you incited somebody to go and attack a building or attack a person, that's illegal. But if you just said, I don't like the government's policy on a particular issue, then that's a reasonable statement.
Ah, yes, but again, you can interpret that in different ways, because we've already seen some reports of people who've said things like, oh, so what, let them burn down the hotels where the migrants are staying. I don't care. If that makes me racist, so be it. And when the particular lady wrote that, she might well say, I never actually meant them to go and do it. It was just me blowing off steam.
Yeah, absolutely, and with all these things, I say there are judgments to be made, and judgments are made by the courts, and we will get this test of reasonableness. And I think increasingly people are looking very closely at what's posted on social media, because there's a permanent record. Even if you've deleted it, the trace is still there. If you've said something in a conversation, it's arguable how you meant it and what the context was. If you posted it on Facebook or X or Insta, it's there forever, and people can use that as evidence.
Is the problem partly here, if we sort of take a step back slightly, that we don't really understand quite what we're doing? We all know about keyboard warriors and things like that. I mean, someone's been in touch this morning and said, it's all very 1984, we should just publish and be damned. Well, actually, I mean, we can't do that. Newspapers can't do that. But actually, ordinary people can't do that. They just might not know it.
But I think you're asking, I can't do it sitting here. You can't do it sitting where you are. We'd be hauled up before the courts, and rightly so. And I think people don't realise the impact of what they're saying. The fact is, a message on social media, as we know, can be retweeted or read millions of times. And therefore, the impact of that can actually be far greater than publishing something. But the other change, of course, is that social media companies are now being treated as publishers under the Online Safety Act. And that will mean that early next year, they're going to be liable for the content that gets posted on them, and they will have to make efforts to stop it.
And what's extraordinary is that even the social media, the tech giants, we're calling them, Elon Musk being obviously one of them, he himself fell for this. He retweeted something that was untrue. He about an hour later or so, deleted it, but it had already gone around the world.
Well, exactly. If Elon Musk posts something, millions of people will read it. And the thing is, yes, he's as subject to it as anyone, that misinformation and so on. But he, like everybody else in the world, he's going to have to be more careful. Because if we post something that we don't know to be true and it looks like incitement or insulting or abusive, then we can be liable for that. And I think we're going to see more and more prosecutions along those lines.
What about free speech in all of this, Alan?
Yeah, free speech has always come with responsibility, hasn't it? People say, what's happened to free speech? We are still free to say what we want, certainly in the comfort of our own homes. If we're not tweeting it, if we're saying it to our friends and family in our home, that's okay, even though we may not like it. But free speech has always come with responsibility. We've never been able to be absolutely free about everything we say. There's always a caveat that comes with that.
Okay. Alan, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Hope puts it into some sort of context for us, which is good.
We'll exercise our right to free speech and say, have a lovely day.
Yes, but don't go anywhere because it's the Camilla Tominey Show straight after the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a warm day today, plenty of sunshine on offer, turning even hotter on Monday with the risk of some thundery downpours too. But back to this morning, many places seeing a dry start, and that will continue through the day as well. There is going to be some cloud, especially across the southern areas of England and across southern areas of the coast as well. Some mist and fog still lingering here. But on the whole, plenty of fine and dry weather, and it's going to be feeling warm as well. Temperatures across northern parts of England and Scotland, 22 degrees. Further towards the south, hotter here and humid, 29 degrees. Now into this evening across parts of Scotland, staying fine and dry, plenty of late evening sunshine, and temperatures even at 5 p.m. holding up at around 20 degrees. Across parts of western Northern Ireland, we're just seeing a bit more clouds starting to build later on in the evening. But elsewhere, many places seeing a fine end to the working week. Just